All right. Good evening. We are live with the Salon review. All right. So now what I've got here, ladies and gentlemen, is this is intended to be a small group review session. I've got 30 people that bought in at the Catherine level, the Empress level, and this is primarily who I'm going to be interacting with tonight. Now, if you're on the Catherine level and you've got the chat, if we can come into the chat when you actually have something to ask me, because the way that this works is 10 p. Anna's here. Anna, so good to see you.
Hi, Tom.
Yes, there you are, Anna. All right. And so who you representing over there on your shirt there? What's that?
Mississippi State.
Oh, you live in the South?
No, I live in Chicago. I just picked this up.
Okay, gotcha. I was okay. So the thing is, as far as that goes, ladies and gentlemen, like we've got like 30 people who bought in at the Catherine level, and we've got like 10 people can be here at one time, which we've got room for people to come and go. But basically, you know, for example, like when you can, you know, if you're not like actively asking me a question, then, you know, go ahead and just kind of make room for other people. So nobody should be like just camped out in the chat. Okay. In the video chat. Now, the other thing is I want to give like some priority to like East Coast people. So if you're like in California or Utah or somewhere like Colorado, you know, it's like let some of the East Coasters ask some questions. They're probably going to want to go to bed. Now, the way that I've got this set up, you know, I've got contractually, I'm going an hour and a half. I plan to go, I'll likely go more than an hour and a half. I think I went a lot longer than that with the A-Push group last time. But the whole point of this is to really get a small group of people together. So we've got a few things here. For those of you who are now, for those of you coming into the actual chat, like I said, if we can like not camp out in here, I'll probably have to kick some of y'all out. If you're not actively about to ask me a question, then let's try to make this like people kind of coming and going in the chat, okay? So if y'all can, so the thing is, we've got a, let's see, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Okay, so those of you who are starting off in here, you know, if you're on the East Coast, especially Central Time, if you're on the West Coast, make room for somebody else, because the goal is for me to have like a personal interaction of some sort with everybody. You know, it's kind of a classroom size group. And I'll be here for a while. I mean, the objective here is to have the benefits of a small group session. Now, there's also the cat chat, okay, what I'm calling the cat chat, which is, you know, the Catherine level subscribers have a chat where you can go in here and basically, you know, remember headphones. If you're going to come in here, headphones. All right. So as far as that kind of stuff, y'all go ahead and put stuff there. Now we've got a chat here. I can kind of see what people are doing and all of that good stuff. Okay. Let me go ahead and just take a look at the regular chat real quick. And just kind of see what's going on there. All right. So let's see. Let me go ahead and look at the regular chat. We're going to start in just a second. Okay. Now, where is my friend Henry? Okay. So what I want to do to Henry, Henry, you are going to be a moderator. Okay. So Henry is now a moderator. So the thing is, because I collected money for this, we shouldn't, Miss Lopez is here now, or Miss Lopez, we shouldn't have to worry about a bunch of people coming in here and, you know, staying. Let's see, is Anil here? Is here now, or Miss Lopez, we shouldn't have to worry about a bunch of people coming in here. And,
this is so cool.
Okay, I've got to make sure that I think there are a couple people that might not have gotten the, you know, when they registered, didn't realize that there was a PDF that came with that. Okay, so I just want to make sure that everybody that bought into this thing is actually, you know, is actually able to get here with us. So just bear with me for just a second here, and we will be getting started. In just a second. Okay. So, and remember, those of you on the cap, you know, those of you here, if you can, you know, let the East Coast folks have some priority, that would be pretty awesome. All right. So as far as that, ladies and gentlemen, now a lot of y'all are here. You got like spectator tickets and stuff like that. You know, but this is really designed to be a small group review. So I'm going to be looking at this kind of catering toward the people who, you know, who initially registered at that level. So let me go in here. And of course, y'all are, you know, free to talk in the chat and all of that kind of stuff. Now, whose video chat link isn't working? Okay, let me know what's going on here. Now, the thing is, I might just have too many people in the vid chat right now. 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Okay, there are a lot of people in the vid chat. So what I'm going to do here, those of you in the vid chat, and I may go to the cat chat, see what's going on now. But Trey, you are the first one here. Trey, let's go ahead and begin with your question. 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Okay, there are a lot of people. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, I need y'all to self-mute. If you don't have headphones on, need to go ahead and mute when you're not talking. Now, Trey, you are muted. You need to unmute and ask your question. Trey. Okay, we're going to kick Trey. He might come back later. Okay, so we're going to kick Trey. All right, we've got here. Is it Pujan?
Hi, that's me.
Okay, excellent, excellent. So how can I help you this evening?
Hi, well, first of all, I hope you get me a 5 on the AP Euro exam.
Okay, can't guarantee that, but I certainly hope that happens for you.
All right, so my question is if we can summarize periods 1 and 2, because that is what I was like struggling mainly.
Wait, like you realize like summarize periods 1 and 2, you want me to go through half the course?
No, I mean like condense it into like, you know,
yeah,
like the
that's really like, hey, give me something a little more specific than that I can kind of sink my teeth into. Now, one thing I would note though quickly about periods 1 and 2, like 18. Now, and I remember period numbers aren't used on the test. Let's avoid that period number stuff. They'll never mention number period, but until 1815 is what we refer to as the early modern period. So we don't really call it fully modern; it's early modern. Now, the thing is, if we think about like what makes something modern. Like modern Europe is secular, you know, it is technological. There is gender equality. You know, as far as that kind of stuff is concerned, that when we think about something modern, we see that the economy is largely based on market forces, now regulated market forces. You know, your social class isn't quite as determinate as it was. You know, Europe in the medieval period, you know, as an agricultural economy, it was dominated by religion, feudalism, you know, feudalism, which is like, you know, regional governments and stuff like that. So when you look through that, it's like basically 1815, we are really getting on to fully modern. And what happens here is that's after the French Revolution, that the French Revolution is really a watershed event when it comes to modernity. All right, a watershed event when it comes to being modern. So as far as that goes, I mean, it's just kind of hard to summarize like half the course. But if you have something like more specific for me, I can tackle that.
My question was really more on the Reformation and how, like, after the Renaissance, because that's where I kind of got lost when starting this course.
Okay,
I mean,
so
like,
you tried later, you're saying, but that kind of, okay. Now, one thing that I think is very important is to kind of see that the Reformation is more like reformations, because it's not like everybody's on the same page. Like Martin Luther is like a moderate reformer, okay? That Martin Luther basically has a list. He's got his 95 Theses. He's got a list of things. These are my problems with the Catholic Church. And so, you know, that's as far as what Martin Luther's saying. These are my problems with the Catholic Church. And, you know, I don't think there are 7 sacraments. I think we've got like 2 or 3 or something like that. And so Luther is basically taking the things he doesn't like and modifying them with things that he does like. And so, you know, now remember, for Luther, it's all about faith. It's about having faith. And so justification by faith, not by works. Now, free will comes in here. Because if you think about free will and, you know, Christian humanism and all that, basically the Catholic Church teaches that human beings have free will. So if you are a Christian, then if you're really a Christian, you'll act like it because you have free will to act however you choose. And so if you are living a sinful life, then you are not a Christian. Now, Luther says, you know, your free will is not quite perfected like that. And so people are going to still do some bad things. And so basically, you're not judged by your works, you're judged by your faith. Now, John Calvin, what's important about John Calvin is that, you know, what we have here with John Calvin is that he creates a new systematic theology that is based on the idea of the sovereignty of God. And the sovereignty of God is basically God is in control, and he's in control of everything. Okay, he's in control of everything, which includes your eternal salvation. Okay, it includes your eternal salvation. And so as far as that goes, we've got let's see. Let me get somebody in here. Somebody paid to get in and has not gotten the link. Just real quick. Now, John Calvin basically says, look, God is in control of everything, including your salvation. And so that's where predestination comes in. Okay. And so as far as that goes, that you don't have any free will. So with Luther, it's justification by faith. With Calvin, it's justification by grace. And remember the Calvinists, who were called all kinds of different things. They were called Huguenots in France, Puritans and Separatists in England, Presbyterians in Scotland. But the thing is, they wear plain clothes. They whitewash churches. They've got a very, very strict interpretation of Christianity, because if you're of the elect, you'll act like it. They're not supposed to flaunt riches. That's kind of the whole Protestant ethic. They work hard, but they don't display a lot of riches. Now, here's the other thing, though. You got Luther and Calvin. Now, of course, you've also got the Anabaptists, who are, much more radical. But then you've got Henry VIII. Now, Henry VIII, it's like, if any of you have ever taken U.S. history, it's almost like the Confederate States of America that seceded from the United States, and then they created a constitution that was like 95% the U.S. Constitution. And so Henry VIII, it's really for political reasons. He wants to get a divorce. He wants to get an heir. And so as far as that goes, it's really much more of a political kind of thing, which means that Henry doesn't really change a lot of stuff. Like Henry's Reformation is a more conservative Reformation, which is going to, of course, lead to problems when you see the Stuarts, because, the Puritans and Separatists, they're going to say that the Church of England is too Catholic. I can't tell the difference between this Church of England and the Catholic Church. The Church of England is held on to too much of this corrupt popery and all of that. And so, that's really going to be a big sticking point here, as far as that goes. So you see a lot of conflict in England under the Stuarts is not so much between Catholics and Protestants, but between Protestants and Protestants, Anglicans and the Puritans and Separatists, the Calvinists. So that's something I think it's important to note, that like Henry's Reformation was really not a theological Reformation. It was much more based on politics. All right. So just a little kind of summative review of the Reformation for you. And, Poojan, after we circulate through everybody, if you're still here, feel free to keep hanging out.
All right. Thank you so much.
All right. Not a problem. All right. And next we have got Neha. All right, Neha.
Hi.
Hey, what have you got for me?
I have a question about art throughout history. So could you go over the different art movements, and especially the ones in the 20th century?
Okay, now again, like I was telling the previous person, as far as this goes, what about a specific art movement that I could go into for you?
More like the ones in the 20th century, after World War II,
Yeah, now I'm getting kind of shaky there. Now, of course, you've got pop art and stuff like that. The thing is, I find that really for this exam, Neha, is as far as that goes, I would say that the biggest thing for a survey level course in European history, to realize that after the advent of photography, the whole point of art changes, because 300 years ago, if I wanted a portrait, the only option I would have is to get an artist to paint it, right? So if you think about the Renaissance ideal, the Renaissance ideal is to create something that is realistic, to create something that is realistic looking. And we see that most art, from Renaissance art to neoclassical art, even the Baroque, still looks real, even though it may be ornamented, but it still looks real. And so, with that, if you think about Renaissance, that it's even romantic art, where we're doing landscapes. But the advent of photography in the late 19th century is really changing the whole point of art. So you start going to Impressionism, where, let's experiment with the colors and stuff like that. Now, then you get into the 20th century, and art gets to be much more about expressing yourself. So like when we were talking about Dada, and that sort of thing, which Dada is kind of this like anti-art, you know, this very absurd, you know, nonsensical sort of thing. Now, another thing that you've got in the 20th century, let me go into, let me see what we've got here. Let me see, I'm going to pull up surrealism, which is of course influenced by, you know, modern like philosophy, like Freudian stuff and that sort of thing. So let me go ahead and pull up a little bit about surrealism, which Salvador Dali, you know, and you've got this, and it aligns a lot with philosophy, because Salvador Dali, you know, he said there is only one difference between a madman and me. I am not mad. All right, so Salvador Dali is just basically like, look, you know, I'm really no different from a madman, except I know exactly what I'm doing. Now, the persistence of memory, the melting clocks. So really here, it's like when you look at surrealism, you know, what he's trying to do here is, you know, basically give you, I mean, just it doesn't make sense. It's not supposed to make sense. You know, which, you know, he said about the telephone, you know, he designed this lobster telephone. And he asked, like, I do not understand why when I ask for a grilled lobster in a restaurant, I am never served a cooked telephone. I do not understand why champagne is always chilled, and why, you know, on the other hand, telephones, which habitually so frightfully warm and disagreeably sticky to the touch, are not also put in silver buckets with crushed ice around them. So the thing is, when it comes down to it, you know, this is the sort of thing that, you know, essentially, life doesn't make sense. Life doesn't have to make sense, and art doesn't have to make sense. And so we see in existentialist philosophy much less emphasis on rationality. And we see the same thing in art. Okay, so art in the 20th century is just much more expressive, you know, than anything else. Now, cubism is like another thing. You know, these are not realistic depictions. These are, you know, these are meant to be things that are, you know, just interpreted and stuff like that. So hopefully that, I mean, the thing is, it's not important necessarily. Now, Dada is a nice thing to mention. I just like the way it sounds. Dada, Dada. Expressionism is another movement that is like, you know, into like expressing yourself through art, not trying to necessarily do something that's realistic. So that would be the main takeaway that I would do for like 20th century art versus earlier art forms that were more true to life.
Okay, thank you.
All right. Thank you, Neha. All right. And so then we've got, let's see, are you there, Matt?
Oh yeah, I'm here. So
now I'm hoping if I eject people that they can come back if they have another question. But in order for me not to eject you after your question, just go ahead and leave this part of the Hangout, because go ahead, make sure you're watching as well on the YouTube stream, because remember, we'll just be, this is kind of a revolving door for people to kind of come in and out of here. So once you're finished with your question, if y'all can just go ahead and leave this Hangout and get back to watching on the YouTube page, then that way I don't have to kick you. I don't think it permanently removes you if I have to kick you, but it may. I'm not sure. So in order to avoid any confusion there, just when you're done asking your question, go ahead and get out of there. That way somebody can process in. All right. So Matt, what you got for me?
Okay, so I want to know more about the psychological effect of the age of anxiety across Europe, and the causes of it, and what were its effects.
Okay, now the age of anxiety is kind of like a nebulous term. I think that, is it the McKay text that uses that as a title for a chapter?
Yeah.
Because it goes down to like, it's like a poem called The Age of Anxiety, okay? And so as far as that's concerned, it goes back to some poem, but the age of anxiety, I believe, is usually talking about what, the interwar period?
Yeah.
Yeah, so we're typically like, you know, walking about the interwar period. And, you know, the thing is, like, you know, I was talking about that before World War I, a lot of people felt like, you know, before World War I, people are like, hey, things make sense. The world makes sense. The Enlightenment, science, technology, reason, that the world is getting better and we are involved in perfecting it. Now, after World War I, a lot of people are very, very disillusioned, and they believe that humanity has not necessarily made progress, okay, that humanity is really like just stuff doesn't make sense. And so basically, although Freud and Nietzsche, they were doing their thing in like the late 19th century, the philosophies of Freud and Nietzsche are experiencing like a very, very, major, it's like they get a lot of attention in the 1920s. Now, on the other hand, there are in some circles also a religious revival, religious revivals in Europe. Think about somebody going to war. Either going to war is going to make you not believe in God. It's going to like really shake your faith in God to the point to where you're like, I just can't anymore. Or warfare might make a believer out of you. You might actually be like, might have more faith in God than you normally would have had. So the age of anxiety is just usually, referring to this period where, people are questioning the foundation of rationality, because, before that, it's like whether you're looking at Christianity or whether you're looking at the Enlightenment, you're dealing with, a world that makes sense. Okay. A world that makes sense. And so as far as that is concerned, that's about the best explanation I would go into that particular topic. So thank you, Matt. If you'll let yourself out, make room for somebody else in here. All right. And we've got here, let's see, Kristen.
Hi. It's not Kristen. It's her son. Yeah.
Oh, wait, it's what?
It's Josh. I'm just using her account.
Oh, okay, excellent. It's Josh. Okay, well, Josh, by all means, even if you're using a false name, go ahead and ask your question.
All right. So I'm actually gonna ask the question. I'm his friend.
Oh, well, yeah, friends are good too. Go right ahead.
Anyways, I wanted to know a little bit more about post-Cold War economics and this miraculous, what was it? Miracle economics, something like that.
Oh, the economic miracle. I think you're talking about like West Germany.
Yes.
Yeah, that basically like what's going on is like, I mean, when you have the beginning of the Cold War, it's really not certain, because remember, before World War II, Western Europe was going through the Great Depression. And so as far as that's concerned, like in 1945, it was still uncertain, like, is liberalism, economic liberalism, or socialism going to be the best thing? And so as you look at this, though, what happens in Germany? Now, Germany's divided into East Germany and West Germany. And what do we know about East Germany versus West Germany, besides which one's communist and which one's not? Which one has a much better economy by, 1980? West Germany has a much better economy. And so really it gets to the point where it's like, basically, this economic miracle that they're talking about is that, look, we've created a very, vibrant economy. Whereas on the other side of that wall, it's like when you look at the Berlin Wall, it's just, it's very obvious, like on one side, they're trying to keep people in. And on the other side, it's got like graffiti all over it. It's like on the West Berlin side, people can just walk right up to it. Whereas on the East Berlin side, you can't just walk up to it. And in fact, there were people who were machine gunned. You had a military presence. And so you had people that were trying to get out of there, and they couldn't get out of there, because, it's oppressive. And that's one thing, like John F. Kennedy said, in his, Ich bin ein Berliner speech, where he said that, basically we don't have to put up a wall, in order to keep our people from escaping. Okay, that's what you had to do. That's what the communist world does. So that's really the thing. Like when it comes down to it, not a lot of people take communism seriously anymore. Most educated people, while they may, want regulation in the marketplace, the whole idea of like the socialist system as the foundation for economics has really been demonstrated to fail. This whole like authoritarian, socialistic, that it's like basically successful economies have a major role for free enterprise to play. Okay, now whether you believe that role, how much that should be regulated, fine. But most people see like market economics, the foundation. If you look into the European Union, the foundation of the European Union is this free trade zone. That is in the European Union, that all these countries trade with each other. So you're creating what started off as the European Economic Community is now like we share a common currency. We share, open borders, and we've got goods and services and people going across these borders. And so what you see there is really neoliberalism in practice. We mentioned this before, neoliberalism, which is basically this whole idea that basically that Adam Smith is the basis for what we're doing is sound, free trade, free markets, but then again, most European countries, also have a social safety net. So that is something that is important as well. Does that kind of get into what you were getting at?
Yeah, that's great. Thank you.
Okay, excellent. All right, if y'all let yourselves out, like I said, if people start leaving and I'm still going, like feel free to come back and ask another question. I just want to make sure everybody, everybody gets a question before people start asking multiples. All right, so yeah, if y'all let yourselves out so somebody else can get in. All right, Joshua.
Yeah.
Are you actually Joshua?
I think so.
Okay, well, good. Okay, because the last person wasn't actually, who he said, so it's like, so anyway, so Joshua.
Can get in. Joshua.
Wait, is Joshua real time here?
Yeah. Are you actually Joshua?
Okay, what's your question?
Okay, well, good. Okay, it's the last person.
Now, what's good? Oh, y'all got, hey, mute the hangout. Mute the hangout in the background. Got it? All right, ask me your question.
Am I
Joshua? Okay, Joshua's having some difficulties. Okay, let's see. Dimitri, you've been here a little while.
Hi.
Okay, how you doing?
Good. How are you?
Doing well. Thanks for asking. All right, so so what have you got for me?
I got a question, if possible, if you can ask this. The difference between like the enlightened despots between like Joseph II, Catherine the Great, and like Frederick the Great, if possible.
Okay, the enlightened despots. Okay, now is that like what is that picture over your shoulder there?
Oh, that's an icon of the Virgin
That's
Mary.
the Mother of God.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, that's what I thought. Okay, very good. Make sure to ask her for some help tomorrow. Okay.
Definitely.
All right. Yeah. Make sure to ask her for some help. She always delivers. All right. So as far as that is concerned, that's what I thought it was, and combined with your name, that is pretty great. All right. So the enlightened absolutists. Now, of course, I've got a video on this topic. But at the same time, like the main thing here, like when I talked about that, trap, basically toleration of religious minorities, reform of institutions. The way that we measure these people is these religious toleration policies, reforms of institutions. Of course, they are, absolutist. Okay, they're all absolutist, and they patronize the philosophes. Now, when we look at Frederick the Great, for example, Frederick the Great would be the most successful of the enlightened absolutists. And one of his biggest contributions was the establishment of a civil service system, which was like one of the first of its kind, where essentially to get into government service, then you would have to take a test, which is, of course, today, like to become a teacher, I had to take a test and I had to show my competence in order to, demonstrate that I can teach. I had to take a test. And Frederick the Great is already starting this kind of system where it's like, okay, you have to take a test in order to get a job. And it's not just based on who you know. So as far as that goes, that's Frederick the Great. Now, also Frederick the Great promoted like potato farming. Potatoes are very high in nutrients, which it worked well for the Irish until it didn't for a few years. And so as far as that goes, Frederick was promoting science. Now, Frederick also patronized the philosophes. He was friends with Voltaire, and Voltaire actually lived with him for a while. But then the problem is that Voltaire and Frederick had a falling out, that ultimately Frederick was above all an absolutist. And so then there's Catherine the Great, who I would say here that she's the least ambitious. Like, you don't really have a lot of reform or anything like that. Okay. Not a lot of reform going on there, not because she was dependent on the nobles. And then, her biggest contribution is she was a big patroness of the philosophes. Like, basically, when Diderot ran out of money, Diderot ran out of money, and Catherine heard about it, and she was like, that's just not right for a philosopher to run out of money. And so she told Diderot, like, I'm going to buy your library. And he's like, well, I need that. I like books. And she's like, let me finish. I want you to be my librarian. And so, although there wasn't a lot of institutional reform, she was like, hey, Diderot, come see me at St. Petersburg, Now, where's your family from, Dimitri?
They're from Chicago. I live in Chicago.
Oh, you live in Chicago. Okay. Yeah. So, but initially, like.
Oh, Greece.
Greece. Okay. Gotcha. Okay. So as far as that's concerned, then, so not a lot of ambition for reform. Now, Joseph II is really kind of the opposite, because Joseph II didn't really patronize the philosophes. That wasn't his thing, but he really did try to bring about like land reform, tried to free the serfs, tried to bring about like full religious toleration, tried to allow the Jews to have like even some of their own schools, but then they attend, like basically Joseph was very forward thinking, but the problem was that he didn't get a lot of buy-in. He didn't get a lot of buy-in from the nobles. And so once Joseph died, then they basically like turned back the clock. And so that's, as far as that goes. So, that's essentially like on his tombstone, it's like, here lies Joseph II, who failed at everything he did. So when I think about Joseph, it's like most ambitious, least successful. Okay. Most ambitious, least successful. And so, that's the thing. It's just when you try to do too much, too fast, you're typically not going to get, incredibly far with that. And so that would be, kind of now remember, Frederick the Great, Catherine the Great, and Joseph II. So it's like Joseph doesn't get like the great on his name there. So it's good to remember that. But anyway, and Dimitri, like I said, once people kind of circle through, if you're still here, feel free to drop by again. And yes, definitely don't forget about the Mother of God in the morning.
Thank you.
All right. Okay. So let's see. Anna.
Hello.
Yes. How can I help you, Anna?
The 7 Years' War, like as a concept.
The what?
The 7 Years' War?
Okay, the 7 Years' War. Okay, now one thing, Anna, that I have not really seen the 7 Years' War as a major, like, it's much more important for U.S. history, like what we call the French and Indian War, much more important for U.S. history. So I would say that it's really, it's an imperial war. It happens in the mid 18th century. But I don't even really mention it when I'm teaching the class. It's just not a real big. Now, the main thing that happens is like the British get India, the French lose their colonies in North America. Now, Frederick the Great also, fights against, I think against Austria. So there are some things going on there. But as far as that actually measuring up to anything on the exam, I've never really seen that. And I watch there tomorrow be like the DBQs on the 7 Years' War or something like that. But I've never really seen that as a significant part. Which part of that, Anna, is, part of that is what I do here tonight, that I'm telling, when I can tell somebody that you're studying the wrong things. It's like, think about some other things. I really would not focus my studies at this point on the 7 Years' War.
Okay.
Do you have another question, since I'm kind of telling you that that's not significant? Is there another one I might be able to help you with?
The War of Spanish Succession.
Okay, the War of the Spanish Succession. Now, Anna, that is a very important war, and so important that I would probably, if you're confused on that, I would watch, like, on my series on Louis XIV's wars. It's a 3-part. The second part is the War of the Spanish Succession. And, you know, which I've got basically that video on Louis XIV's wars. Now, remember that this War of the Spanish Succession was Louis XIV's last war. And, you know, Louis XIV is one of the threats to the balance of power. You know, when you see, like, you know, you've got Louis XIV, and later on you've got Napoleon. Later on, you've got, you know, Bismarck in Germany. Later on, Hitler. You know, it's like basically all these threats to the balance of power. And so, so I think that the, you know, when we're thinking about the War of the Spanish Succession, that's where it gets really important. Like, you basically, it's the end of Louis XIV's wars, but I would watch the video if you really want to get that. Now, it starts off with like Charles II of Spain. Now, there's Charles II of England that's got, like, you know, hella kids. You know, it's just like he's got like 7 or 8 women that he has kids with, and he's got like 14 different kids. Now, Prince William, if he becomes king, a little bit of trivia here, if Prince William becomes king, then Prince William will be the first king to be a descendant of Charles II of England, because Princess Diana was a descendant of, you know, of the, you know, of Charles II of England. So as far as that is concerned, but Charles II of Spain was sterile. Basically, like, there's a certain point where all the inbreeding that goes on, like, Mother Nature's just like, no, stop. Okay. And so Charles II, like, couldn't have children. And so he leaves in his will that basically, like, one of Louis's relatives will get the throne, you know, that throne will go to a Bourbon monarch. And so then basically that is seen as a threat to the balance of power, because, you know, Louis XIV can't be allowed to basically, you know, combine. What they're scared of is, like, when you think about the combination of thrones of England and Scotland. Well, what if the French and the Spanish were to do something similar to that? You know, what if they were to combine the thrones of France and Spain? So as a result of this war, you know, Louis, now this is part of, like, Louis's just, you know, genius and just, I mean, just complete, yeah, we got like 100 people here, but still, you know, just Louis XIV's like complete badassery, you know, as far as that goes, because he is just like, I mean, he's fighting basically all the other powers in Europe, and he fights them to a draw. And that is really like an incredible achievement. And so what happens is they say that a Bourbon monarch will rule in Spain, but there is going to be a prohibition. There's going to be a prohibition for combining those two monarchies. Okay, you can't combine those two monarchies. And so Louis happy with that. You've got a Bourbon in Spain. Now the Spanish still have a Bourbon monarch. Now the French, of course, don't have a monarch anymore, but the Spanish still have a Bourbon monarch. Now here's the thing too, that Louis is really thinking kind of small and kind of backwards here. What the British do is the British, in return for this, the British get Gibraltar, which is right there, which the British still have today, which is basically a naval base in Spain. So it's a port city in Spain, and the British said, we want that. While Louis still thinking about all this dynastic stuff, you know, thinking like an old monarch here, you know, Britain is like, we're setting ourselves up to be the preeminent imperial naval power. And so that one thing here that I think is important, that what we're going to see, you know, at this point is, you know, all of, you know, as far as that stuff, we've got Britain is thinking forward and setting themselves up to be the preeminent naval power. And so that's what I would see as the big legacy of the war, that Louis XIV's wars are over and Britain is set up now to become the big naval power, which of course will be a big help during the Napoleonic Wars when Napoleon can't beat the Royal Navy. And that becomes a problem for him.
Okay, thank you so much.
All right, Anna, always a pleasure. And remember to come back if you know, people circulate around and you're still around and I'm still around. All right, let's see what we've got. Oh, always. Okay, so let's see. Let me see if I've got, let's see. Ambar?
Yeah, hello?
Yes.
So my question is, can you explain the significance of the War of the Austrian Succession?
Okay, now the thing is, now remember, a lot of times we're going into like wars and stuff. It's not quite as emphasized, but one thing, let's see, as far as what I would say about the War of the Austrian Succession is the one where that started with like the pragmatic sanction, right? He left it to a woman, right?
Yeah.
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 And see, here's the thing. You see me like tripping over details, which means what? It's probably not
Basically,
important.
it's not that important.
Right.
Yeah.
It's not that, which that's good. I think that that's important to note, if I can kind of give you some help that like, hey, you're studying the wrong things, that I would just now, I would say I've seen a question before about the pragmatic sanction that basically the war was about like, he wanted to leave the throne to his daughter and there's a war over that. But really now, and here's another thing. Like, what book are you using to study? Like, what are you using as far as your basis for studying?
It's Western Civilizations by Spivogel.
Okay, and here's the thing, that you're using a textbook, which if anybody's got like a review book that's made for this, like sometimes when you look in your textbook, it's like some of the stuff in that textbook is not going to be emphasized. So I would say, yeah, the War of the Austrian Succession is something that I would not look to see at the exam, and I would take a look at something else.
All right.
All right. Excellent. Any other quick questions for me?
No.
Okay, well, appreciate it. All right, let's see what we got here. Let's see. Trent, 2019, Trent.
Hi. Yeah, it's my school email, so they put our graduation
Is that
in front of it.
is that a DX Racer?
Yeah, it is.
Okay, I actually just ordered a DX Racer chair. I've heard they're really, really good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's just it's got like a pad right here, and it's really nice.
And you can adjust. See, the problem with this chair is like I can't adjust this, and it's made for somebody a couple inches taller than me, I think. And it's just, there's something that just is kind of uncomfortable. So I just ordered a DX Racer yesterday. So great to see that. All right, Trent, what you got for me?
I was wondering if you could discuss the Glorious Revolution.
Okay. And full disclosure, I do plan to discuss this tomorrow morning. But the thing is about the Stuarts, okay? Now, the Stuart monarchs, you've got James I, Charles I, Charles II, James II. And basically what you're looking at here is, a conflict, okay? The conflict here is, this is the backdrop of absolutism, all right? So basically, I mean, you got to keep in mind that when the Glorious Revolution happens in 1688, Louis XIV is ruling in France. Peter the Great is ruling in Russia. It's like basically absolutism is working in so many other places, and the English decide to reject this model. So really, when the Stuarts, get on the throne, it's like basically we're going to govern on this absolutist model. And this parliament that's been kind of picking up steam, parliament really didn't have a lot of clout, but remember that Henry VIII, when he sold the monastery lands, he created this landowning class. Like basically the English had a higher a higher per capita like portion of landowners. And so that's something that, as far as this goes, that you got all these landowners that are there. And, so Parliament, they want some authority. And they are not satisfied with this whole, with this whole absolutism thing. And so as far as that goes, the question is, who is sovereign? Because under the absolutist model, the monarch is sovereign. And Parliament's like, we have lawmaking authority. Now, really, Parliament historically, just kind of put a rubber stamp on things. And Parliament had the power to tax, the power of the purse. Okay, so Parliament had the power to tax. But the Stuarts, they tried to, basically Parliament had to meet if there was going to be a new tax. And so Charles I, he's like, let me, what I'm going to do here is I'm going to take this ship money. I always have to be careful there, ship money. This ship money, and he says that we've been taxing these coastal cities, the port cities, for this ship money to pay for the merchant marine. And he said, what I'm going to do is I'm going to start taxing everybody. And so as far as that goes, he says it's not a new tax because I just spread it out more. Now, of course, Parliament says That's a new tax. Okay. This is no good, Charles. Okay. Nice try. And so Charles for a while rules personally. And then the 1640s. Now, of course, there's that absolutism thing, but there's also the situation with the Puritans and the separatists, the English Calvinists, who do not like that James I and Charles I are enforcing religious uniformity. And so basically all of this boils over into the the English Civil War, where you've got the Cavaliers, the supporters of the king, versus the Roundheads, the supporters of the Parliament. So, the Cavaliers versus the Roundheads. Now, of course, Charles I is executed, and then Oliver Cromwell comes in. Oliver Cromwell, who was a Puritan, and basically sets up the Protectorate, which is a period of rule by this Puritan faction that made a whole bunch of strict laws. And even, banned like cockfighting, tried to limit the celebration of Christmas, which they saw that Christmas, of course, from a Calvinist perspective, is supposed to be a solemn holiday. Actually, they thought you should work on Christmas. All right, is what they thought. And so as far as that goes, they thought people should work on Christmas. That shouldn't, people are using this time to idle. And so after Cromwell died, they're like, you know what? Like, let's just bring back the monarchy. These Puritans are so lame. And so they bring back Charles II, who is basically like the anti-Puritan. Okay, that Charles II is, basically, he's got they call him the Merry Monarch. Now, it came from a couplet in a poem that his friend wrote for him, ironically enough. Restless he rolls about from whore to whore. A merry monarch, scandalous and poor. And so as far as that goes, that's the couplet, because basically Charles II always had money problems because he had all these women to support and all these kids to support that, none of them belonged to his wife, ironically. Is that ironic? I don't know. It's late. Okay. And so as far as that is concerned, you've got the Restoration. And so Charles II, like Parliament passes the Test Acts, and the Test Acts are designed to keep Protestants in positions of authority. So basically what happens is there is a religious test that in order to hold office, whether it be a high civil or military office, you had to be Protestant. You had to take communion in the Church of England. And so as far as that went, that is the litmus test for that you have to take that. Now, Charles decided that he wasn't going to enforce the laws. And basically there were laws against, dissident Protestants and Catholics. And Charles is like, I'm not going to enforce them. And then Charles's brother James comes in. Now, another thing Charles II does is he goes into an alliance with Louis XIV. And so that is a pretty big deal because Louis XIV, is at war. And so Charles is ganging up with Louis against the Dutch Republic, and the stadtholder William III. And so, so as far as that goes, and I go into that in my Wars of Louis XIV thing. So at first, the British, the English, the English and the, at that time, I guess still technically the English, but they're getting in on Louis' side. Now, Louis, when he made the secret treaty of Dover with Charles, he says, Charles, I'm going to give you some money. I understand you got money troubles, but, it happens to the best of us, right? And so Charles, in return, will give Louis his navy. He'll bring his navy to help the French. And then if an opportune time shows up, he will convert to Catholicism. Now, what's important is that there is a Catholic resurgence on the continent. And that's basically the stuff that's going on in Britain, which if you think about Brexit, like a lot of people, like they find Brexit hard to believe. And it's like, you know what? Britain is really not European. Like, they try to say that the British don't use like their own system of measurements. The British serve beer in pints. They measure distance in miles. They measure how tall they are in feet and inches. Now, when they talk about their weight, I think it's more like kilograms or whatever. But the thing is that, really the British, they're different than the continent. And, so they basically, Charles II converts to Catholicism on his deathbed. And then James II, his brother, is a Catholic from the start. And this is not very popular here. And James is basically trying to, you know, basically it'd be one thing if James were like, I'm Catholic and, you know, whatever you want to be is great. But James starts trying to put Catholics in positions of authority. And he starts removing Protestants. Like when it becomes apparent that his Lord of the Treasury will not convert to Catholicism, Charles says, you know what? It's not appropriate that a Catholic monarch would have a Protestant first Lord of the Treasuries. Like, can't do it. And so, you know, he, you know, dismisses the guy. And then, you know, James is being like, you know, he's not enforcing laws. You know, he is, you know, not, he's, you know, cruel and unusual punishments. That's where when you read the English Bill of Rights, the first part goes into the statement of grievances, that he is, you know, he is not giving free and fair elections of parliament. So there are a lot of things here that are, you know, that are problematic here, you know, as far as Parliament's concerned. And so what they do whenever James has an heir is they're like, look, you know, you're out of here. You know, we're going to invite William of Orange, because William of Orange was married to his, I believe, first cousin once removed, who was James II's daughter, his Protestant daughter. And they're like, y'all come over here. So William of Orange invades, but basically there's no opposition to him. So he comes in, he invades, and you know, and then he takes over the throne. And now what's important here is that when William of Orange, the Dutch stadtholder, becomes the king of England, at that point, you know, now England, you know, the British are with the Dutch against Louis. And so that shifts the balance of power, because what you've got there is like, you know, an English and French, you know, an English and Dutch alliance against Louis XIV. And I just mentioned the War of the Spanish Succession. So if it hadn't been for the Glorious Revolution, then would Britain have necessarily opposed Louis XIV in the War of the Spanish Succession? So as far as the Glorious Revolution, now William and Mary, they sign over their royal prerogatives, all right? That basically they say, look, we're going to, you know, as far as that goes, we're going to, you know, say that Parliament can govern. Like, Parliament has the right to legislate and govern, and, you know, it's really the king's more of an administrator and stuff like that. So they give up some of their powers. They consent to give up some of their powers. And also there is a prohibition on a Catholic serving as monarch or a monarch marrying a Catholic. And that prohibition, I think the prohibition on the monarch marrying a Catholic was just repealed by Parliament. And I think like 2011, like that basically stayed on the books until 2011, that the monarch of the UK cannot be a Catholic, a papist, as they said, or cannot be married to a papist.
All right.
All right. Well, thank you very much, Trent. If you'll let yourself out. Let's see. I'm trying to figure out who's been here a little while. Eric, I think you've been here a little while, haven't you?
Yes, I have.
Okay, excellent.
Okay, so my question for you today is, I'm kind of confused on basically artistic movements following the French Revolution.
Okay. All right. So one of the things, what I would say here is, remember that the French Revolution was about neoclassicism. Okay. Bringing back this, you know, Roman, you know, this Greek, you know, this Roman grand style, this classical style. And of course that fit with not only the French Republic, because the Roman Republic, but also with the whole idea of like the French Empire under Napoleon. So, you know, as far as what we got there, the French Empire under Napoleon. Now, one thing, the biggest art movement that I would say of the early 19th century is Romanticism. And so what you're seeing here now, consider, you know, basically the Romanticism, you're under the backdrop that the world is changing a lot. The Industrial Revolution is happening. Things are getting ugly. People are losing nature. And so basically there's kind of this appreciation for this way of life, because another thing you have to realize as well is there's increased urbanization. You have these large cities that are, you know, you have these large cities, you know, they're coming, you know, whereas before the Industrial Revolution, Europe was still, you know, Britain and Europe, you know, predominantly rural. So as far as that is concerned, we've got that, you know, that going on, and people are thinking like, yeah, let's paint nature. And so, you know, you've got that. Now, as I said, photography, then you get into like, you know, in the late 19th century, Impressionism. Now, important thing about Impressionism is the backdrop here is the so-called Belle Epoque, you know, this time when there's not really any, okay, there's not even any, well, you know, there's not war and stuff. Okay, Hannah's like taking a selfie or something like that, or taking a, yeah, whatever Hannah's doing. Hey there,
I just got in here.
Oh, you just got in here and you got to be like, oh, I got to say, oh, you know, Tom Richey's there. Ooh. You know, all right. So anyway, it's so funny because, like, you know, I basically go to work the same way as anybody else does, you know, but hey, I'm glad y'all are here. I'm glad we're reviewing together. And so as far as that's concerned, you know, I think Impressionism, you start to see like, you know, that it's very peaceful. That Impressionism really focuses on the mundane, like, you know, like basically, you know, there's a haystack over there, or there's this artist Degas, who he's got a series of he's got a series of paintings. You know, Anna, you're still, you know, you're still watching, I think. But this is one of my favorites. Anna and I talk about art and some of our favorite art pieces. Degas, D-E-G-A-S. Okay. Now, Degas, he's French. And what he does here is basically he paints like a woman who is just going through her morning like bath. And, you know, so it's like she's basically, you know, brushing her hair. You know, it's like this naked woman like brushing her hair and, you know, drying herself off with a towel. You know, so Impressionism really captures a lot of these like, you know, very you know, mundane things. Now, another thing, though, speaking of, because you've got some of these artists like Degas, nudity kind of took a break. You know, you had nudity in the classical, you know, the Renaissance art, but then Baroque through neoclassical art really focused on, you know, in Romantic art as well, you know, there was modesty there. And so you do see some immodesty for the first time there. But that's one of my favorite series, like Degas, you know, just the pictures of this woman who's just, she's just got out of the bath and she's drying herself off with a towel. And, you know, Degas, like, let me capture that, you know, let me capture that moment. You know, so that's something there. And of course, we've already kind of gone into the modern art stuff, but I would say as far as the 19th century Romantic art and, you know, then you've got Impressionism would be your most important things.
Okay. Thank you very much.
Well, thank you, Eric. All right. Go ahead and let yourself out. Make room for somebody else. All right. Let's see. I think that Shelby, you've been here a little while.
Hey, yes, I have.
Okay, yes.
All right.
Let's go ahead and yeah, sorry, I don't really have like a set. Like, let me just make it clear to everybody that's here. It's not like it puts y'all like first or whatever. Like Whitney's over there on the end, but it just put, hey there, Whitney, and it just put her there. Like it's not putting, like I don't have a system that it's showing me who's been here longest. So, you know, sorry about that if I'm not like, you know, getting to. I mean, there's really no method to the madness here. So as far as that goes, Shelby, what you got for us?
All right. Well, one thing I've really been struggling with is kind of looking at the pre-Reformation period and the Renaissance, like looking at the humanism and things that kind of come into play before the Renaissance. That's something that I've really been struggling with. Maybe we can take a look at that and go ahead and do your thing.
Okay, so the Renaissance, like what you're thinking is like the Renaissance as a turning point, right?
I suppose so, yeah.
Yeah, so the thing is, like, if we look at Europe, now let me kind of put something here. I'm trying to fix my lighting so it's a little more like chill and relaxed, but y'all can still see me. But as far as that is concerned, let me pull something up here, and I'm going to let me share my screen real quick.
Yes, sir.
You know, and kind of see what I can do here to help y'all. Now, as far as that is concerned, let me pull that up and share. All right, so
we're just kind of looking at like tracking the time as it kind of goes by.
I've got something here. Okay, so what I'm going to search for here, ladies and gentlemen. You know, let's see. So I'm going to go ahead and just show you, and you can Google this. Okay, you can Google this, but I think this is a great last minute study tool. This is something that I made, and it's called, if you put in Europe Then, Europe Now, Richey. All right, and this brings you a PDF, And what I'm going to do here is I'll share that on the YouTube chat. Okay, so we got some stuff here. Claire Marie, how you doing there? 1905 Russian Revolution. That is where you get a state Duma for the first time. All right, so as far as that goes, ladies and gentlemen, I am sharing this on the screen there. And yeah, I tell you, Yoon's here like, oh, the Russian Revolution, something to do with October Revolt or something like that. Hey, Adrian. All right, so hey, Adrian, I'm sure you get that all the time. Sorry. All right, so as far as that goes, let's look at this handout, Europe then, Europe now. And what I've done here now, the thing is that I've got a blank page. If you want to put stuff on there, make some observations in the morning. What I might recommend is if you were to look at this tonight and then, replicate it on the blank one tomorrow. Here, if you look at, first of all, like the Middle Ages, that, society was organized by the three orders, the clergy, nobility, the third, everybody else.
Yeah.
Political privileges were based on nobility, church, land ownership, all of that. Aristocratic monarchies, privileged classes had a nearly exclusive say in the government. If you were not of noble birth, then there was really not a lot of say that you had. No meaningful role for women in the public sphere. Now, notice is what I do here is I've got the Middle Ages, then I've got 1815, and then 2015. And so when you look at today, it's like, social inequalities, largely today, kind of like in the United States, largely based on wealth and education. When you look at it, like we do have social inequalities, but it's not because of like, your ancestry or class or your pedigree. And so equal political rights, laws are applied equally to all social classes. Now, here's the thing. Now, where does that come from? The French Revolution is a movement that abolished a lot of these hereditary political privileges that still existed, of course, elsewhere. Remember, Eastern Europe is going to hold on to those for a little longer. Russia was going to, they held on to autocracy until 1905, okay, that they're holding on to, this autocratic system that they've put together. And so, we go from aristocratic monarchies to like limited suffrage in the 19th century. And that's one thing too. Remember that the classical liberals in the early 19th century to, this let's make sure you've got headphones on. If you're coming into the chat, thank you. And so, we go from monarchies to like limited suffrage in the 19th century. Seriously, people. Let's see, Hannah, is that you? All right, got it. Okay, I don't know. Let's see.
All
right. Okay, got it. Okay, so as far as that goes, you see like, when you look at women here, feminism, that we see here that, the feminist movement by 1815, it has not necessarily borne fruit at this time. Okay, but you have had Mary Wollstonecraft, who has published, her Vindication of the Rights of Woman, where she is arguing for, for women's rights. And so, on, remember, a liberal basis. Now, so as far as that, and of course, today, women are in official leadership positions. Thatcher, Merkel, of course, since I've made this, Theresa May has become the prime minister of the UK. And it looks like, they're about to have a general election over there. It looks like she's about to get, actually elected, because remember, that kind of fell into her lap after Cameron resigned after Brexit. And so, we see again, what is making Europe modern? And in the Renaissance, you're seeing some of this, like secularism is a part of the Renaissance, but then again, half the art of the Renaissance is really about, is about like religious themes and stuff like that. So, as society goes on, we're becoming more globalized, more secularized, more democratic. Okay. I mean, there are just a lot of things that are happening now as far as trade. You start off with having a lot of isolation that Europeans before the age of exploration, they had a very bland sort of diet. They didn't have spices and all of that kind of stuff, which we eat a varied diet today because, we live in a globalized society. Okay, and that's very important to note. And that really all started, and this is where you kind of see the bigger trends, because when it comes, when it comes to that, what we're seeing here, all right, what we're seeing here is this trend. So the age of exploration, I would say, is really what starts this movement toward globalization. And of course, subsistence farming and a local production-based economy versus what we see in the modern world, commercial agriculture. And where is that? Which I would think here that you think about like modernity as starting off in the Middle Ages, okay, as starting off in the Middle Ages. And, basically, how is the world, how is Europe getting more modern? So you go from feudalism, localism, to nationalism by 1815. And then lately we see European integration in the post-World War II era. Now, one thing to note about this that I think is very important is when it comes down to it, and Paul made a good point about this during our public hangout, is that although we've got a trend toward European integration, there's been some backtracking, and there are times when women's rights were backtracked, so it's like, you see that there's a trend toward European integration, but Euroscepticism has been a pretty big movement in Europe lately. And then, of course, we get into like, uniformity and little ethnic diversity. Then you've got post-World War II immigration that has made Europe a lot more diverse. And so I think when you're looking for, and I think if you look at that, you see, Shelby, that the Renaissance is really the beginning of all of this, you see?
Okay.
The beginning of turning more modern, turning more secularism, having more of a commercial trade. All right, so thank you, Shelby, for stopping by there. And
no problem. I love your shirt, by the way. K2SO is my favorite Rogue One character.
I agree. I think he's like the best Star Wars droid ever. Plus, like,
Absolutely.
what I like about, I wear this shirt sometimes to AP Hangouts because I think that K2SO really represents the AP mentality. It's just
true.
He always gets it done. I mean, that's the thing. I mean, when I think about AP inspiration, and he's like, look, I want a blaster. It's just he's not. I mean, he's got such a can-do mentality, and that's one thing. Saturday, I'm gonna be watching Rogue One with my kid. I really can't wait. Like, we went and saw Rogue One in the theater 3 times in December, and that's just kind of our movie. So yes, thank you so much, and glad you got to stop by, Shelby. Thank you.
No problem. I hope you have a great time.
Oh yes, I will have a good weekend. I think there will be a lot of sleep in my future.
Of course.
All right, let's see. Addie, you've been here for a little while.
Hi.
Hey, all right. How can I help you, Addie?
I was wondering if you could explain the significance of the War of Roses.
The War of the Roses. Okay, now I would direct you, Addie, to Paul Sargent's video on the new monarchies. Okay, so I would say here that it is an episode in the development of the new monarchies. Now, the new monarchies are, we're looking at Ferdinand and Isabella in Spain, Henry VII in England, and whoever they were in France or whatever, But the thing is that, basically the War of the Roses, you've still, like, the new monarchies, basically, it's almost like a proto-absolutism. That Henry VII in England starts to set up a centralized administrative state and challenge this old feudal order, okay? Challenging this old feudal order. And so the power of the church and nobility going down, the power of the monarchies going up. And so the War of the Roses, if you think about it from a Hobbesian perspective, that the reason there was this big civil war is because the monarchy was weak. And so Henry VII created a strong monarchy. So he's the guy that won. So the thing is, when it comes down to it, you're not getting into the nitty-gritty details of the War of the Roses, but really realizing that this is part of what's going on in the new monarchies. And so I would focus on the general things about the new monarchies and what's going on there, and knowing that you would identify those new monarchies, in Spain as, and of course, when it comes down to it, like the Spanish Inquisition. I know nobody expects the Spanish Inquisition, but it happened. And the Spanish Inquisition is, you know, basically a lot of times we blame the church for that. People blame the church for everything. Now, that's one thing I'm going to remind everybody is that in the scientific revolution, Galileo wasn't necessarily challenging the church. Galileo was challenging Ptolemy's geocentric universe. And so the church was defending Ptolemy's geocentric universe. And so as far as that, you've got, now I don't know how I got all of that. We were talking about the new monarchies, right? But as far as that goes, kind of big things, but what's going on with the new monarchies just in general, but associate that with Henry VII, the War of the Roses, the development of the new monarchies. Because when Henry becomes king, he creates the Star Chamber Court where he can basically try like nobles, like in a royal court, seeking to curtail royal power. So that's the thing. I wouldn't look. I would look at Paul Sargent's video on the new monarchies, and just remember that the War of the Roses is part of that.
Okay, thank you. And I just wanted to say, Miss Delbert's class says thank you again.
Oh, okay, Miss who?
And Miss Delbert's class, we're sending you the king cake.
Oh my goodness, oh wow.
Yes.
Thank you. I could tell you're from somewhere in the South. Oh my goodness. Like that is really so nice of y'all. Really just, I guess she told y'all I'm a Louisiana native.
Yeah, she did.
And so it's like, I don't get king cake anymore. It's like I used to get one like every Mardi Gras. And, it's just, you really don't realize what you're missing out on until like you move out of Louisiana. Now, of course, my wife just made some crawfish etouffee last night. We eat plenty of good food up here, but when it comes to king cake, we don't have that. So
yeah,
thank you so much. I tell you what, that is, some people,
no problem. Thank you for doing this.
Others say, hey, thank you. And that's the thing. Like, there are some people, like I had the, just before I take the next question, this is a funny story. Like, I made the 6-second ad for my app. And, so as far as that goes, I made the 6-second ad for my app. And there was this person that said, like, this disgusts me. Like, basically, I'm taking advantage of people and I'm taking their money. And it's like, look, dude, it's a $2.99 app. And I don't know, like, but the thing is, like, a lot of people appreciate like this opportunity to be in a small group, like that's the thing. It's like people appreciate it. It's like, I'm providing a service. I'm getting some money. You're getting what you wanted. You're getting some extra review. Everybody wins, hey, so y'all see my hand here? Now you don't. Because why? Why don't you see my hand? It's invisible. Okay, that's the whole thing. It's invisible. And so that's the thing. It's like there's not, Adam Smith says, there's nothing wrong with the profit motive. It's like everybody else is, we're all here because we all have a common purpose. So, thank you for everything. And I'm glad y'all are thanking me. Adam Smith said, in the spirit of the Enlightenment, that we have a harmony of interest. It's like, it's not that everything has to be oppositional to each other or anything like that. So, as far as that goes, that's good. So thank you so much. And please tell your classmates hello for me and best of luck tomorrow. Okay.
Bye.
Bye. All right. Let's see who we've got here. Now, is there any of y'all that are in here right now that are on the East Coast? Okay, because I'd really like East Coasters to be okay. So we've got now Trey. You've been in here I've seen you in here for a little while. So Trey, go ahead and let's get me your question. Trey. Let's see. Trey's getting ready. Hopefully. What's that?
Can you hear me?
I think so.
Okay. I was going to ask, since nobody's mentioned it yet, about just the effects of the Industrial Revolution, just like the social, economical, political, all that jazz.
Okay, the Industrial Revolution. Okay, so as far as the effects, now first of all, it's like this is one thing that I ask students. Let's see, just 1 second. Let's see. All right, so as far as that goes, the Industrial Revolution, I ask students, like, how many T-shirts do you have? Like, Trey, do you know how many T-shirts you have?
Too many.
Too many. Okay, I thought he was about to say, like, oh, two, or something like that. Or, but the thing is, nobody can say how many t-shirts they have. I mean, I don't want to know like how many pair of underwear y'all have, but it's like you probably don't know that either. You know, it's like basically, you know, we have more clothes than we can count. Before the Industrial Revolution, all clothes were custom tailored. They were very, very expensive. And so you couldn't like just decide like, hey, you know, I'm going to I'm just going to go and buy, you know, some t-shirts. You know, it's like, I mean, this is expensive. And so people would just have, you know, maybe a couple suits of clothes, and that was basically what they wore all the time. Now, also the Industrial Revolution, it is creating a great deal of wealth. Okay. So as far as that goes, you know, you've got, you know, essentially the transition from hand power to machine power. Now, of course, you've got the second Industrial Revolution, which I've got a proper video on, but, you know, you see technological progress, efficiency in production. Okay. So just, you know, all kinds of stuff, you know, along that vein. And so we're all getting richer because, well, actually we're not all getting richer because of it, because the other thing is when you look at the Industrial Revolution, just some really awful, at least the first Industrial Revolution, some really awful working conditions for the working class. You know, especially in a place like Manchester, it's just like, oh my goodness, that like foreign visitors and people just be like, this is just disgusting. Okay. Like this is like maybe the worst thing I've ever seen. So, you know, overall though, it's making people wealthier. Now, another thing is, you know, that basically the Industrial Revolution, it makes the gulf between Europe and the rest of the world a lot bigger. Okay. And that is something that is extremely important there, because before the Industrial Revolution, you know, it's like every country was a developing country. Like today we talk about the industrialized world and then the developing world. And when it comes to that, like, you know, the industrialized world versus the developing world, that didn't happen before the Industrial Revolution. Of course, the second Industrial Revolution, which creates even more automation, is something that is, you know, that's even putting more of a gap there. On my second Industrial Revolution video, that would be a great one for you to watch in the morning, because it basically goes into, I've got a graphic organizer that I present, and I go into like, just comparing the first and second Industrial Revolution. And so that would be one, if I were going to make like a list of like videos to watch on the morning of the exam, I would probably get a refresher there, because, you know, entirely possible that you could see something about, you know, either the first or the second Industrial Revolution, and being able to differentiate between those two movements, I think is really important. And so as far as that goes, yeah, as far as, you know, what I'd get into here. Now, another thing, let's see, I think I may have some, just some notes. I don't really have like a proper presentation on the industrial, like the Industrial Revolution, but I did make a little like kind of study guide. And so let me see if I can do that real quick. Let's see. Okay, so as far as that goes, all right. All right, so as far as that stuff, let's see what we've got here. Let me go into AP Euro, and let's see, that would be Unit 6. All right, let's go into that. And what I'm going to do, I'm going to give you all a little link here. Let's see, the Industrial Revolution. Oh, wait, you know what? That's in the lecture notes folder. Okay, got it. Okay, so I'm going to share this with everybody in the chat room. So let's just drop in the main chat room here real quick. Let's see. So Olivia, how you doing? Could you get every multiple choice? Yeah, you don't get the multiple choice wrong, Olivia. That'd be statistically impossible. So, you know, did I read the DM or not? I'm not sure about that. So what DM am I supposed to read? Henry, keep in touch with me and I'll figure out what I do here. Coach Cannon. Okay, Coach Cannon. So great. Glad I could drop by here. All right. So Memphis, Tennessee. All right, Mr. Irvin's class. Now, this isn't really about shout outs so much, ladies and gentlemen, kind of more of a small group session, but I don't mind doing a couple shout outs like here and there once in a while. All right, so ladies and gentlemen, let's see what we've got going on here. Oh, okay. We've got some people that cannot get in or have been banned. Okay. Now, if I kicked somebody out, let me figure out how we would go about that. I'm not sure how that would work, but if you are in a situation where you're not getting in, now I may have, when I kicked people out, it may have, let me just check on this real quick and see if I can Google this real quick and see what's going on. Okay. So, let's see. Okay. Okay, so unblock. Okay, so settings at the top of your friends list, highlight blocked, and let's see. So, let me just do something real quick here. All right, so okay, not sure how to do that. Let's see. Yeah, unfortunately, I might have unwittingly messed something up, and let's see. And if I have, just get in touch with me. Okay, if there's that, if there's something like that, I mean, I guarantee, ladies and gentlemen, I guarantee all of my products. So it's like, if you didn't get the benefits you signed up for at the $15 level, and if you just shoot me an email, I will refund you down to the $5. I'll refund you $10. And that sort of thing. If you didn't get what you came in for, I guarantee everything I do. So just make sure that that, yeah, I'm not like, if something went wrong, no problem. I will refund the appropriate amount of money. So just let me know. All right. So Trey, I just shared that thing, I think, on the Industrial Revolution in the chat, right? Did I?
All right, the front cover of the book, because I thought it was funny.
Oh, okay. Let me take a look at that. Let's see. So front cover of the book. Let me look at that. Okay. We got Catherine the Great?
Yeah, I thought it was pretty funny.
Yeah, it is they pick some interesting covers for those Kagan texts, don't they? They've got one of Napoleon. It's just like not a good picture of him. He's like all in makeup and stuff. And I'm like, come on, what about like Napoleon crossing the Alps, All right. So let's see what we got here. Oh yeah. Thank you. Thank you, Trey. And let's see, Justin, let's see, you said you're on the East Coast, right? All right, let's see, Justin, unmute. Okay, so Justin, where are you from?
I'm from Smithfield, Virginia. It's pretty small.
Nice. Oh, wait, Smithfield?
Yeah, it's about 45 minutes.
Classmates have talked to me before, I think, or somewhere in Smithfield.
Yeah.
I was in Virginia Beach doing a live review last week, but I think it's a little far away from Smithfield.
About 45 minutes away.
Okay, did anybody make it?
I don't think anybody from my school did.
Okay, gotcha. All right. And so, Justin, what you got for me?
Okay, so my question is about the actual test taking strategy. So how do you suggest we best go about taking the LEQ and DBQ portion?
Okay, so let me just give you all the full rundown, okay? So multiple choice, remember, now I did a multiple choice strategy session. Some of y'all were there. The thing is that multiple choice, make sure you remember that the stimulus only about a quarter to a third of the questions really require you to use the stimulus, that most of the questions are actually just straightforward content knowledge questions. That's important. Now then with the SAQs, with the SAQs, make sure you do your make sure you do your best one first, and you go through and go in and do your worst one. Like the first thing I would do, you got 50 minutes on the SAQs. So what I would do there, you've got 50 minutes on the SAQs, then that's 2 minutes to look at them initially. And then you've got, 2 minutes to look at them initially, and then 12 minutes per SAQ. And I would tell people, mark them 1 through 4 so that you do your best one first, and then, because you can do them in any order. So you do your best one first, and then the fourth one, you might be like, I got nothing here, okay? And so the fourth one's like, if you have time. And then the DBQ and the LEQ. Now, always do the DBQ first, because the DBQ is what, that's 25% of your exam versus 15% of the exam for the LEQ. Now, also, the DBQ does not necessarily require you to know content. Like you can get a 4 or 5 on the DBQ without any outside knowledge of the period or even just knowing a very little bit about it. And so I'm a big DBQ fan. Now, if you're not a good DBQ writer, oops, because that's like 25% of the exam. Now, the LEQ, that is very dependent on the topic. If you don't know the topic, like there are 2 choices and you're like, oh man, I'm screwed both ways. Then see, there's a calculation you need to make because AP suggests that you spend 55 minutes on the DBQ and 35 minutes on the LEQ. Now, I tend to keep it simple. You've got an hour and a half. I tell people an hour on the DBQ, half an hour on the LEQ. It's easier, right? But if you look at the LEQs and you're like, I'm not going to write a great LEQ. Do you need half an hour to write a mediocre LEQ? No, you don't need half an hour. You need a half an hour to write like a great LEQ. All right. So as far as that goes, you need something for a great LEQ, but you don't necessarily need something for a good LEQ. So what I would say is if you feel like the LEQs aren't going to go that great, then, you can spend a little more time on the DBQ and make sure that you get that right. Okay. So I think that that's something that is, that is important for that. Okay. So as far as that goes, we've got that going on. Let's see. So do the DBQ first because the DBQ counts for more. All right, DBQ counts for more. And then, the LEQ, it depends on how strong that's going to be. Because really, to write a 4-point LEQ, you have to write a thesis that takes into account similarities and differences, continuity and change, the turning point versus not turning point. You have to mention that, or a variety of causes. So the thesis mentions that. You allude to it somewhere in your body paragraphs. And then from there, you just have to use 2 pieces of outside evidence and then synthesis. And so that really doesn't have to take you that long. But I would say the DBQ is the important part of that. And the LEQ, if it's good to you, then great. If it's not, now y'all talk about like making a 4 or 5 or whatever. It's like you can write like a 3 or a 4 on the LEQ. But if you got like 40 correct on the multiple choice, you got half the credits on the SAQs, and you got like a 6 or 7 DBQ, you can conceivably still make a 5, at least a 4. Okay, so that would be my strategy. Make sure the DBQ always comes first.
All right, thank you.
Okay, and remember, before you start your DBQ, look at the LEQ topics so that you can kind of preview that. Do you have a weak? Are you going to write a weak LEQ or a strong LEQ and plan accordingly?
All right, thank you.
All right, thank you, Justin.
And my
anybody else on the East Coast? All right, let's see. We got, Hannah. Let's see. Hannah's kind of relatively new. Okay. Well, we've got 2 Hannahs. Okay. So we got 2 Hannahs on the East Coast. Let's see. Blue Hannah.
Me?
Yeah. Or blue Hannah. That's the one that's like in the dark, like just like blue, like dark blue. Yeah. Let's see. So what you got for me, dark blue Hannah?
Can you talk about the English Civil War?
Already did.
Oh, my connection dropped out for a minute. I must have missed it.
Just kind of give you a short thing. Now, of course, you've got access to the archive of this thing too, and I'll be actually talking about this topic in the morning as well. The English Civil War, Cavaliers versus Roundheads. Now, what happens with this kind of going in? All right, so let's see. Yes, let's see. Pujan is back. All right. So as far as that, now, Pujan, did you get kicked earlier, or are you good?
Yeah, so I got kicked. Yeah, on Hangouts, when you kick someone, you get sent on the block list on there. So.
Okay, but you're back. But you got back.
Yeah, I used a different Google account. I just made.
Okay, so anybody that I accidentally kicked, you can come back in with a different Google account. Okay, and so the thing is, and thanks, Pujan. Now, but let's see. So Hannah, the English Civil War. Now, Charles the First is enforcing religious uniformity. Okay, yeah. So basically, ladies and gentlemen, if you got kicked, get on a different Google account and come right back in. Sorry about that. That was an accident on my part. Okay, so as far as that goes, Hannah, that Charles I was an absolutist. He insisted on religious uniformity, and he appointed an Archbishop of Canterbury who was into high church Anglicanism. Now, high church Anglicanism means that we are basically running a service that is a lot like the Catholic service, okay? That it is, high church is kind of the opposite of like Calvinism. Because Calvinism is like take everything out of the churches, keep everything real simple sort of thing. And so Charles is into high church stuff. Now, also, the Church of England was sympathetic to Arminian doctrines. Now, Arminian doctrines are doctrines that emphasize free will. And so what we have here is the emphasis on free will rather than, the emphasis on, of course, predestination. And so there were religious problems. Then there was the problem of Parliament, okay, which Parliament, Charles didn't want to rule with Parliament. Charles was an absolutist. And so you've got basically the religious issues with the Calvinists, the Puritans, and the Separatists, and then you've got the issues with Parliament, and all of that's coming to a head in the 1640s, leading to the English Civil War, and the Cavaliers, of course, taking the king's side, the Roundheads being the ones that are the, with the Puritans, all right, with the Calvinists. And so that's basically what we're, and I'll get a little bit more of that tomorrow when I've got some caffeine. These late night sessions, I don't have the benefit of caffeine because it'll keep me up all night. All right, so Hannah, that would be in kind of a preview tomorrow because I'm planning on mentioning that tomorrow morning as well.
Okay, thank you.
And of course, the other thing is absolutism is never going to come back in the same way after that, even though there are going to be some problems with Charles II and James II. All right, other Hannah. Oh, yes, and I've got, and Whitney, you'll be next, okay? Hannah, then Whitney. Whitney, great job there, okay? So Whitney's like, me. All right, so Whitney after Hannah, then you, and then I think that Lauren's been in here a while too.
Hi, Tom, Richey.
Hey.
I was wondering if you could go over some of the religious wars stuff, because we had like this big packet.
Lauren's been in here a while too.
Okay, that's fine.
Let's see, Kiara, if you can mute something, put some headphones on or something like that. All right, so as far as that is concerned, you had a big packet, okay? So you've got two wars of religion. Now, I've got a video on each of these, okay? The French Wars of Religion and the 30 Years' War. Now, 1648 is a major turning point in European history because this is the end of religious wars. This is the end of people, continent-wide wars of people killing each other over religion, you see? And so the French Wars of Religion is basically the Catholics versus the Huguenots. Of course, you've got Catherine de' Medici, the Queen of France, who's Catholic, St. Bartholomew's Day Massacre. But really, the thing about it is this word politique, or as one of my students said one time, politicue. Now, it's a written test. So, if he wants to call it politicue, he can call it politicue, right? And so when it comes down to it, politique, this means that you are putting matters of the country in front of matters of religion. And politique is like really Henry IV, Henry of Navarre, who becomes Henry IV of France. When he becomes King of France, he converts to Catholicism. And he says, like, look, Paris is worth a mass. That, if I want to be king of this country, and this country is like 90% Catholic, then I should be their religion. And so that is politique, that basically I put political concerns in front of religious concerns. Now, you could possibly, depending on the prompt, synthesize that with Bismarck. You could synthesize that with Bismarck because Bismarck's saying, like, look, realpolitik is a rejection of traditional forms of politics and, the traditional isms. And so that's really when Henry IV becomes the King of France, and he issues the Edict of Nantes, where he says that I'm going to allow toleration of Huguenots in certain places. Now, of course, Louis XIV later rescinds that. Now, the other war of religion is the 30 Years' War. And the 30 Years' War is, the 30 Years' War is basically, it starts off as a local religious war. Of course, the defenestration of Prague, nobody ever forgets, like people being thrown out of a window, right? And so the defenestration of Prague, and of course, it's for the first two phases, the Bohemian phase, the Danish phase, we're looking at basically the Holy Roman Empire. Now, when Gustavus Adolphus gets involved, then you see Sweden, Protestant Sweden is getting involved on behalf of the Protestants. And then the French have to decide, whose side are we going to get on? France is a Catholic country. But Cardinal Richelieu, who's like the first minister of France, then he decides that, like, you know, look, I'm the first minister of France. I'm a cardinal. I'm a Catholic. But it's in France's best interest to side with the Protestants versus the Habsburgs. So what you see here is a common theme. You've got politique. Okay, you've got politique as really a theme here. And so as far as that's concerned, yeah, so politique would be a key theme for that. So, you know, politique, you see France using that, French leaders using that in the wars of religion. And then, of course, in the 30 Years' War. Now, in 1648, the Treaty of Westphalia. Now, some people say the Treaty of Westphalia. I don't like to say fail. Just not a big fan of that. Not a big fan of failure. So Treaty of Westphalia, now that weakens the Holy Roman Empire. And it really sets France up to become the predominant power in Europe. And the thing is that after the 30 Years' War, there will never be another continental war in Europe that is going to be because of religion. Got me?
Mm-hmm.
All right. Okay. Well, thank you very much, Hannah. And let's move on to Whitney. And Hannah, you can let yourself out there. Now, ladies and gentlemen, I'm going to be sticking around and keeping on answering questions. But make sure, ladies and gentlemen, that if you've already asked something, now, if you've already asked something, I may not be taking another question. Maybe I'll take one more from Poojan before we're done, but we'll see. But the thing is, like, we are kind of, I want to make sure everybody gets to ask me at least one question, kind of directs where I'm going with that. And so we'll see what Whitney's got to ask us. Okay, unmute. There we go.
Can you go through the continuity and change over time of the poor, like how they stayed the same and how they changed?
The poor?
Yes.
Okay, the thing is, Whitney, what I don't like about this question is, like, it's almost like you're asking me, like, to answer like an old exam question, which odds of that being on there, not so. You see what I'm saying?
Yes.
So I'd rather answer another question if you have one, because I believe that, like, you can't really anticipate what's going to be on the exam. Now watch, the DBQ be on the poor or something like that. But really just something that you're like, hey, I need something, kind of, reviewed. Now it can be something that is, now, Whitney, are you the one that emailed me a little while ago?
Yes.
Or is that another? Okay, so we're good?
Yes.
Okay,
I still got kicked off, but then I couldn't get back on, but I'm on now.
Oh, okay, got it. Okay, I've got you. Okay, excellent. So, what is a question that I could answer that's really more like kind of something you're studying?
And
it can be exam. I've answered some exam related questions, but it's just when somebody's asking me something that sounds like an exam question, I just kind of shy away from that.
Could you go over the like Napoleon's rise to power, but not really just that, but just his wars and expansion?
Okay, now the thing is, Napoleon's rise to power, the main thing that you need there is that Napoleon was politically active. All right, Napoleon was politically active as a Jacobin. He knew, he knew that the secret here was to get politically connected. So he became popular with folks, and, he kept rising up the ranks because France is at war and people were dying, and he was still there. In 1798, 99, whatever, Napoleon went on an expedition to Egypt. Now, the thing is, Napoleon was actually defeated militarily in Egypt. Now, you've got Admiral Lord Nelson with the Battle of the Nile, but Napoleon also brought scientists and scholars. So when he got back to France, it wasn't like, oh, Napoleon got defeated. It was like, oh, Napoleon found all this cool stuff, and so basically Napoleon ends up coming to power as a member of the French consulate. And what this was created to replace the Directory. Napoleon led a coup against the Directory. And they established the consulate. Now, Napoleon was one of three consuls. And so France is still a republic governed by these consuls, and Napoleon's one of them. Now, of course, Napoleon, they thought he's a general. We're going to, Abbé Sieyès and other people thought we can manipulate him. We'll just rule through him. And they didn't realize, once you put Napoleon on top, he's He's there. Okay. He's not going anywhere, and he plans to rule personally. And so with that, you see the transition from, the consulate, Napoleon's consulate from 1799 to 1804 to Napoleon's empire. Now, the thing is, a lot of the military stuff won't necessarily be on the exam per se, but what's important here, besides the Napoleonic Code and that sort of thing, I would emphasize the continental system. Napoleon's continental system was basically an embargo against the British, all right? An embargo against the British, because Napoleon could never, he didn't have naval superiority. So he tried to basically, we're going to just not trade with Britain, and we're going to cut them off economically and starve them financially. And so as far as that is concerned, Russia broke with the continental system. And so the reason why Napoleon invaded Russia, bad idea, by the way, the reason Napoleon invaded Russia was because Russia opened up trade with Britain, and Napoleon was going to make an example out of Russia. Now, he ended up getting bogged down there and just all kinds of bad stuff, and just wasn't a good idea to invade Russia, but it was because of the continental system. And of course, the invasion of Russia is kind of the beginning of the end for Napoleon. Now, another thing that you would want to know, that Napoleon was in, he sent troops into Spain, and they had they had problems there. Goya, the 5th of May, I believe, yeah, Goya, the 5th of May, like that painting, where the guy's got his hands up and he's being fired upon by a firing squad. That is an anti-Napoleonic, like basically a lot of guerrilla warfare there. Napoleon really overextended himself, so you see that kind of come back to bite him, because Napoleon had aspirations to basically rule the whole continent of Europe directly or indirectly. It wasn't just for France, but, it's like the French Empire. That he wanted an empire across Europe. And finally, the coalitions, the Seventh Coalition finally, got together and got rid of that threat to the balance of power.
Okay.
So the thing is, now knowing where his exiles were and that kind of thing, and knowing that he lost the Battle of Waterloo, that kind of stuff is going to be good for you, perhaps on, LEQs or SAQs or DBQs, but the exam, like the multiple choice, isn't necessarily going to focus on those little bitty details, I wouldn't think.
Okay, thank you.
All right, and thank you, Whitney. All right, and let's see, Lauren.
Hi.
How can I help you, Lauren? Where are you from?
I'm from California.
All right. Still plenty of time to study and binge watch videos.
Definitely. Okay, my question was on the causes of the Russian Revolution and the role of the Bolsheviks.
Okay, now in the Russian Revolution, like basically I would sum up the causes of the Russian Revolution in terms of, now, first of all, we need to remember that World War I is the breaking point. It's like without World War I, we wouldn't have ever really seen a Russian Revolution as we know it, okay, without World War I. That basically, now the historiography, though, was Russia going to break before World War I? Like, if World War I had never happened, would the Russian Revolution have happened anyway? Some historians say that Russia probably would have broken anyway, but then other historians point to, like, they had a sound currency and all kinds of other stuff like that. But Russia was really economically backward. They were just getting around to industrializing, whereas Europe was, Western Europe was way ahead of them on that. Russia, until 1905, was an autocracy. Okay, which, you see in the 19th century that in Western Europe, you're starting to see more representative government. And by this time, by like 1900, France is a democracy. Britain is a democracy. Germany's not a democracy, but at least they've got a representative body that has like a little bit of power. And so Russia before 1905 really didn't have any of that, just any kind of representative government or anything like that. And so I would say that the autocracy, then the fact that, they're trying to catch up on industrialization, But then World War I is really, that's something that, that breaks. Now, another thing is, some of y'all might have read about like the Empress and Rasputin. It's like basically kind of like if you want to compare the Russian and the French revolutions, Marie Antoinette, and then Nicholas II's wife, I think like Alexandra or something like that. But, where she had Rasputin and she was seen as somebody that wasn't really that popular with the Russians. So as far as that goes, I think that'll get you, taken care of as for the causes. Now, again, of course, you've got the, the rise of, these, socialist movements and stuff like that too. But I think the main thing is just that Russia really was not ready to fight a modern war. World War I, Russia was really not ready, at least at the outset. Now, later on, they were starting to, get some advanced weaponry, but they got beaten so bad by the Germans, at first that, the morale of the Russians was really low. And, that's when Lenin was able to get in there. Like the Germans actually helped them get back into Russia. So, that's really, I think if we go into the causes, like you'd have World War I, the autocracy, that there was really just a lack of representative institutions. And then you would have the economic backwardness of Russia, given that they were so late to industrialize.
Yeah.
All right. Well, thank you so much, Lauren. And Lauren, that is a cool light you've got in your room, whatever that is.
It's my TV.
Oh, it's your TV. Okay. It was just like, I thought you had some light that kept changing colors or something. Okay. Well,
Thank
Lauren,
you.
best of luck to you on your exam tomorrow.
Thank you.
All right. And Michael, I see a track. Let's see. Michael, I see a track here. Let's see. Are you there, Michael?
Yeah.
All right.
So I can just ask a question now.
Yes, exactly.
So I was just wondering, could you explain the mass politics in the 19th century?
Okay, mass politics in the 19th century. Okay, so as far as that goes, all right. So mass politics. Now, basically, you start off with, in the 19th century, in most places, people cannot vote. Most people. Let's take into account like Britain. That most people in Britain cannot vote. Only about 8%, maybe, of the 6 to 8% of the male population can vote. And then with the Reform Act of 1832. They expand the franchise to more people, but still not a lot of people. I mean, this is really getting into the late 19th century. Now, of course, during the French Revolution, I think you have your first example of mass politics, because during the radicalization period of the French Revolution, then you're starting to see, what do you call it? You're starting, they say that we're going to have a vote and it's going to be every male, like it's going to be universal manhood suffrage. Well, of course, they do that, and then heads start being cut off. And so people are wary. That's where you've got the, the conservative movement. As far as that is concerned, with the conservatives, they're like, that probably wasn't a good idea. And one thing that I would note here is even the liberals are suspect of mass politics. Because basically, I mean, which if you look at, what's going on in the election that we just had, it's like, where you've got, somebody like Trump who appeals to like, popular xenophobia, or you've got somebody like Bernie Sanders who is like, we just need to tax the heck out of the rich. It's like when you have mass politics, it changes the political culture that liberals were afraid that if you let the working classes vote, they're not going to be voting to protect individual rights and property. They're going to be voting because they want to redistribute wealth and stuff like that. So the thing is, but in the late 19th century, now in Britain, you have the Reform Act, sometime in the 1870s during Gladstone. And so you have, people, basically just noting that it's in the 19th century where we start to see like mass politics and of course, labor parties and stuff like that. So that would be, one of the takeaways is that classical liberals weren't necessarily for like full-on democracy. I think that's an important takeaway. Another important takeaway is that throughout the 19th century, you see nations going toward this universal manhood suffrage, whereas that may not have been, that wasn't necessarily the case in the early part of the 19th century. And then another thing is that newspapers are becoming very popular. That's something I saw on have any of y'all taken like the 2016 exam for practice?
Yeah,
if you have in class or something, there was one of like some people reading, they were all like working class people were reading a newspaper together. And so the thing is, the reason they were interested in the news is now they can vote. It's like they can influence politics. And of course, today, I think we spend probably too much time talking about politics and not enough time like living our own lives, just because of the pervasiveness of, politics on the internet and social media and of course, cable news. So the beginning of what we've got here is really happening in the, in the 19th century.
Okay, thank you. And
All
also,
right. No problem. All right. Thank you, Michael.
Yeah, thank you.
And let's see. So let's see who's next. All right, let's see. Luke, you were here at the very beginning. Let's see. All right, Luke. Let's see. Can we hear Luke? Let's see. Not sure. Let's see. Mark, what you got for me?
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you fine. I can actually hear you great.
Thank you. Can you go over The Economist?
Okay, as far as key economist, okay, I think that's important there. That's a good, kind of economics review there. Okay, so one thing I would say that you've got now, traditional economies, are basically like customary economies. That those were the economies of the late Middle Ages. We set prices by whatever is a just price or a fair price or whatever. And let's see if Michael and let's see, Pujan, if y'all can let yourselves out just in case we've got a few more people who need to come in and ask a question. I want to make sure that everybody that hasn't asked a question can get back in. So we've got, let's see, looks like we're starting to kind of lose viewers, which is good because people are going to bed and I want people to go to bed. So especially if somebody's like on the East Coast. Okay. So as far as that goes, let's go ahead and do economists. So traditional economies where, you set a just price, it's dominated by guilds and stuff like that. Now what happens here is I would say mercantilism. Jean-Baptiste Colbert, who was Louis XIV's Controller General of Finances. Jean-Baptiste Colbert puts together this mercantilist system, which is based on what we want is gold. Like the richest nation is the nation with the most gold. And the way that we get gold is we export things and other countries pay for them with gold. And we don't import stuff. So our objective is to get the most precious metals. Now that's Colbert. And basically what you're trying to do is which if everybody's exporting and nobody's importing, then, what's going on here. And then Adam Smith, when he writes Wealth of Nations, now he titles this book, An Inquiry into the Nature and Causes of the Wealth of Nations. And so as far as that's concerned, that this book, The Wealth of Nations, he's saying that like, look, mercantilism says that the wealth of nations is measured by gold. And we need to control trade, okay? We need to control trade. Adam Smith says a nation's wealth is actually measured by its trade, and its output, like what a nation makes and trades both, that you want trade going around both ways. And so as far as this is concerned, Adam Smith says, you're totally wrong on this, that what we need to produce wealth is laissez-faire, invisible hand, and free trade, that individuals need to be free to make decisions for themselves. And that's going to give us the best economy. And Adam Smith is what you call classical economics. Okay, so classical economics is based on, Adam Smith, market economics, invisible hand. Now, of course, there's, Karl Marx, with socialism and all that kind of stuff. We're all going to live happy, that the workers need to take over the means of production. Now, anywhere that's been tried, that is extremely inefficient. All right. And so as far as that is concerned, you know, workers need to seize the means of production, and you make everything more fair. Now, John Maynard Keynes is one of the most influential economists of the 20th century, okay? Of the 20th century. And so as far as that goes, you know, John Maynard Keynes, he criticized the Versailles Treaty. You know, he also said that, you know, basically that we need to, you know, when there's an economic downturn, then what you need to do, a government needs to deficit spend. Now, classical economics, you know, a government doesn't spend more than it takes in. You know, we want to be careful about that. Now, Keynesian economics says that either governments, like deficit spending, either if we do it by tax cuts or government spending, that's going to prime the pump of the economy. Now, Keynesian economics has been, you know, was very influential in the 20th century, but it's really kind of lost ground to what's called, you know, neoliberalism. Now, neoliberalism we can look at as far as Margaret Thatcher. Okay, that, you know, that economic liberalism, that basically Margaret Thatcher is one of those people that's, you know, reviving this very, you know, economically liberal mentality. So I would say that Jean-Baptiste Colbert, Adam Smith, Karl Marx, and John Maynard Keynes would probably be like your most important economist, you know, for European history.
Okay, thank you.
All right, thank you, Mark. All right, so as far as that goes, let's see. Okay, so we got, okay, people are going to bed. That's good. Let's see. Dahlia, where are you from?
I'm from San Francisco.
Okay, you're in California. Are y'all all from California? Where's everybody from? Hector?
Hey, man, I'm from Los Angeles.
Okay, California. Do we have anybody here not on the West Coast? Let's see. Okay.
Minnesota.
So yeah, we want like non-West Coasters. Now, what I'm going to do real quick, I'm going to be around for a little bit longer, but I'm probably, I mean, by 12:30, I'm going to be out of here, if not before then. But I will take a question from everybody. So let me go refill my water, and I will be right back. Okay, so I'll be right back. But we got a lot of West Coasters here, so you know, good. All right. So anyway, be right back. All right, let's see. So, wait, I had somebody in here that was just, I was going to take their question because they weren't on the West Coast, and I think she left. All right, so let's see what we've got here. Anybody not on the West Coast? All right. Dolly.
Me.
Huh? Wait, what?
Me.
Joshua, where are you from?
Yep, Minnesota.
Minnesota. Okay, well, Joshua, let's go ahead and get your question. I want people that are like, you know, that are in the Eastern and Central time zones to go to bed. So let's go ahead and get your question.
All right, I was just going to ask if you could like explain the Metternich system and the Congress of Vienna.
Okay, very good. Now, of course, remember that I've not only got a video on the Congress of Vienna, but I've also got a rap about Metternich, okay, where I go into that kind of stuff. So the thing is basically that the Congress of Vienna is a reaction against the excess, what they see as the excesses of the French Revolution. Basically, if you're a conservative at this time, that the French Revolution was a problem, and the problem here was, you know, okay, so as far as that goes, that the problems were liberalism and nationalism. Those are the two things that work together to undermine, okay? They were the two things that worked together to undermine these stable governments that existed before. And so basically all of those heads being cut off and all of that kind of stuff, liberalism and nationalism, that's who's at fault. And so conservatism is seeking to basically, you know, maintain the place of the aristocracy. all right, to maintain the place of the aristocracy in European society. And there are two components of this: stability between states. You know, basically, the French Revolution had everybody at war with each other. So one of the objectives here is to avoid another continental war, in which sense the Congress of Vienna, I'd say, was very, very successful. Because aside from the Crimean War, which I would not categorize the Crimean War, like if you put the Crimean War up against the Napoleonic Wars and World War I, drop in the bucket. And so besides the Crimean War, you know, you've got basically a century of peace. Like, you know, nobody really considers the Crimean War like a continental war, where just everything, you know, all hell breaks loose and everybody's fighting each other. So stability between states, that we want to keep the borders in place. And then stability within states. Okay, so we want to make sure that, you know, there's not like a revolt or something like that. And that's why, like in the revolutions of 1848, basically European countries, like if their neighbor was experiencing a revolt, they would send somebody in there to help. Okay, so it's like the French and the Austrians, you know, sent troops into Italy in 1848. Russia sent troops into, you know, Austria-Hungary. To put down the revolts over there. So, you know, it's basically you help each other, like the Holy Alliance, Russia, Prussia, and Austria, that they were basically, you know, getting together in order to make sure that, you know, this conservative order, you know, was going to be maintained, and that we're not having to deal with, you know, with rebellions and the like. Okay, so excellent. All right, good deal.
All right, thank you.
Okay, so yes, thank you, and good luck on your exam tomorrow. All right, and I hear there's intelligent conversation going on in the chat room. Very happy to hear that it's not just a bunch of racists, like, you know, spewing whatever nonsense. Okay, that's something very important to me, and thank Henry, and you know, whoever Henry made the moderator, thank you for, you know, just keeping the chat room clean and all that. But I hear there's really good conversation going on in there, so excellent. All right, so let's see, Princess, where are you from? Okay, I don't need.
I'm from Martinez, from California.
Oh, from California. Okay, so yeah, so we got Californians. Okay, Dahlia, what question do you have for me?
So I have a question. What were the so after Marx, what were his works? His works, what did they affect?
Okay, what did Marx affect?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, well, basically, I mean, Marx basically, I mean, just he's kind of the father of communism, so he affected a lot.
So I mean, can we say that World War World War II was Marx affected the caused World War World War II? I'm sorry.
I wouldn't put Marxism in that stuff, because really, like the Soviet, like the Bolshevik Revolution is a consequence of the Bolshevik Revolution is a consequence of World War I, not a cause. You see?
Yeah.
So I would not say, I mean, now you could say like World War II, you could say totalitarianism as a whole, but, you know, I think that you've got much more going on from, like, you know, Hitler in Germany and Mussolini, you know, in the 1930s, as far as acts of aggression and stuff like that. So I would say that, you know, the Bolshevik Revolution is a consequence of World War I, and not, you know, not a cause of World War I.
Okay. Thank you.
All right. Thank you. Glad I could clear that up for you.
Mm-hmm.
All right. And let's see, Dahlia, we'll get to that question now. Okay. You got a friend with you?
Yeah, it's my sister. Hi.
Okay. Good to see y'all. Have you taken AP Euro yet?
Yeah, both of us. We're twins.
Yeah. Y'all are twins?
Yeah.
Okay, excellent. All right. Well, hey to both of you. All right, both taking AP Euro. What y'all got for me?
We were wondering about the collapse of the Soviet Union, particularly in 1989. If you could clear that up.
Okay, so now, of course, 1989 is not the collapse of the Soviet Union. Okay, and so yeah, and Pujan, you're back, so I can ignore that email from you, right? Okay, good deal. All right, so that's fine. I don't have to. Okay, so good deal, because I don't like to refund money. That's just not, I'll do it, but I don't like to. All right, so as far as that goes, let's see. So the collapse of the Soviet Union. Now, what happens here is the key is Gorbachev, when he comes in, he inherits a mess. Like it is a big mess. And Gorbachev says that if this thing's not going to fall apart, it's going to need to be restructured. So he puts together these policies of glasnost and perestroika. Glasnost, remember openness? I think glasnost, because you can see through glass. Perestroika, structure, stroika, restructuring. And so Gorbachev, is basically doing that. Now, also, Gorbachev renounces the Brezhnev Doctrine. Now, the Brezhnev Doctrine, remember, what did that say?
It said that they were going to try and keep communism in the Soviet sphere. So they're going to try and prevent the Western powers from taking any communist countries away.
Yes. That basically, if there is any effort in the Eastern Bloc at liberalization, the Soviet Union will respond with military force.
Yeah.
And so Gorbachev said, no more Brezhnev Doctrine. The Soviet Union is not going to control the governments of the Eastern Bloc countries. And so with that, that's where you get the fall of the Berlin Wall in 1989. You see that Solidarity in Poland, which was a trade union movement, which was basically they had a trade union that wasn't authorized, by the Soviet Union. And so, this, like the Solidarity movement, now, of course, they also embraced, Catholicism. It was a workers' movement. And so basically, you've got kind of a domino effect. Now, that's 1989. Now, Mikhail Gorbachev is then elected as president of the Soviet Union, but the Soviet Union only lasts till 1991. So, by 1991, so 89 is when the Eastern Bloc starts, basically separating, because Gorbachev says he's not going to enforce, the Brezhnev Doctrine. And then 91 is when the Soviet Union collapses. And what's important about 91 as well is, although it's technically not ratified until 92, 91 is the year that the Maastricht Treaty, Maastricht, as the Dutch would say, Maastricht. Now, that treaty was being negotiated in 1991. So the same year that the Soviet Union is falling, the same year that we've got the collapse of communism, the European Union is getting started. And so that's basically a turning point, because you're going from like this, NATO versus the Warsaw Pact. Now, of course, NATO is still a thing, but it's just, it's more, which NATO actually includes several Eastern Bloc countries now. So there's been an expansion of NATO in the years, since the collapse of communism. Does that clear it up a little bit?
Yes, thank you so much.
Okay, very good. Thank y'all, and best of luck on y'all's exam. And, don't wake up too early tomorrow, but when y'all wake up, I will likely be broadcasting. So looking forward to hearing from you then.
Okay. Thank you. Bye.
All right, thank y'all. All right. I tell you what, I'm thinking like okay. So I'm thinking like on Troy, where Brad Pitt's all like, Hector. You ever hear anybody ever do that to you?
Unfortunately, yes. So,
yeah,
you're not the first.
I'm not the first. I was thinking, no way, I'm the first. Okay, but anyway, I love a good Brad Pitt movie. All right, Hector, what you got for me?
All right, man. What led up to the Peace of Augsburg? Like, what were the causes of it?
Okay, the Peace of Augsburg, essentially, like Martin Luther is in the Holy Roman Empire, right? Mm-hmm. And so essentially, Charles V is a devout Catholic. And Charles V, gosh, I'm getting like I'm getting my second wind. Now I need to broadcast tomorrow, or else I'd probably just be up a while. But I'm getting my second wind. So Charles V was the Holy Roman Emperor, and he was a devout Catholic. So Charles V pronounced Martin Luther to be an outlaw. And, basically the first thing that Charles V tries to do is he tries to maintain Catholicism within the entire Holy Roman Empire. And, you know, basically the Reformation, there were too many of the rulers, of the local rulers in the Holy Roman Empire that put up resistance, and there was some fighting here and there. And so the Peace of Augsburg is basically a peace agreement within the Holy Roman Empire about 1555, if I'm not mistaken. So it's about 35 to 40 years after Martin Luther's 95 Theses. And so there's been all of this debate. And so the Peace of Augsburg says, whoever reigns, his religion. And this was a way to keep peace in the Holy Roman Empire, where the emperor said that you know what? If a local ruler wants to be Lutheran, they can be Lutheran. If a local ruler wants to be Catholic, they can be Catholic. Now, of course, are you in a tent? Looks like you're in a tent or something like that. Oh, he's trying to.
I'm sorry?
Are you in a tent?
No, I'm in my room. It just happens to be that the computer set us up the water.
Oh, okay. I saw like the light was changed. It looked like somebody had a flashlight or something. Okay, gotcha.
No, man. No.
All right. So he was like, man, he's like camping out all night studying. But as far as that is concerned, you know, the Peace of Augsburg basically makes it to where people aren't fighting, and it limits it to Lutheranism or Catholicism. Meanwhile, like if you go to the Treaty of Westphalia in 1648, they expand the Peace of Augsburg to include Catholicism. To include Calvinism. It already included, like, basically you had Catholic or Lutheran. So this is essentially just one of those things like, look, Charles V is like, I'm not going to be able to keep everyone Catholic. So here's our agreement. Whoever's the local ruler, that will be the religion in that area. There we go. So it's really just kind of pragmatic. Like, we can't keep fighting over this. And, you know, here's our solution.
All right. Awesome. Thank you.
All right. Thank you, Hector. All right. So, Matt, have we heard from Matt?
Yeah, you already heard from me.
Oh, okay. And so we have Princess. I think we got a question. Okay. So everybody in here has asked a question already, you know, which if there's anybody here that wants to come back in just real quick. Now, again, I'm going to be doing about 15 more minutes. But Matt, do you have any other questions?
Oh, yeah. I was wondering about the actual formation of the EEC and how it led to the EU.
Okay, so essentially what you're dealing with is like, you know, you've got the European Economic Community, the European Coal and Steel Community, you know, the Treaty of Rome that starts like that kind of nuclear energy thing. Essentially what you're looking at, and I think that's what is sufficient for the exam, is to know that the EU was, you know, the Maastricht Treaty was signed in 1992, creating the EU. But these other things are like precursors, okay? Because the European Economic Community, I believe that we're talking about like France, Germany, and Benelux, you know, like Belgium, the Netherlands, and Luxembourg, right? I mean, you're basically talking about a limited sphere. Now, when the European Economic Community first was created, Britain declined to enter it, okay? Britain declined to enter it. And so, of course, when Britain first tried to enter it later, France actually vetoed Britain's entry into, you know, they vetoed Britain's entry because they thought, you know, Britain is a Trojan horse for the United States. Like, if we let Britain in here, then we are just going to let in American influence. And of course, France was very, you know, was very wary of that time, you know, at that time of American, you know, of American influence. And so as far as that is concerned, you know, we see that, you know, that basically, and of course, Britain, you know, now they want out. Okay. But even before that, Britain didn't want to take on the pound or anything like that. So what started is essentially a trade union. Okay. That basically France, Germany, the Benelux countries, they created this free trade zone, and eventually Britain got in, and they brought in other people like Italy and, you know, yada, yada. But then it culminates, you know, from economics. Okay. So before the EU, it's really just an economic union. But when the European Union was created, then it also has some political powers, okay? Like there are some European Union regulations that apply to everybody. Now, of course, they've got the Schengen Agreement, which is these countries that have the zone where everybody can travel. You know, it's like, you know, when you go from the Netherlands to Germany, nobody has to check your passport or anything like that. So if you get into these, you know, the Schengen area, you can basically travel through. So the main thing to note is just to have a couple examples of those early things like the European Economic Community. It started off as just an economic thing, but then it did get, you know, it did get much larger than that. And now it's, you know, economic and somewhat of a political union. And you hear talk now about them wanting to create an EU military. I don't know if I see that happening.
All right, thanks.
All right, and let's see, Poojan, do you have one more for me?
Yes, I do. It's like 12:17 here. I should be going to sleep, but
Oh, okay, you're on the East Coast. Yes, you definitely should. So ask me your question and go to bed.
So for this is really just about the exam in itself, and my teacher really didn't know the answer to this. So
okay.
So basically, when we take the test tomorrow at 12, we have the SEQs, and I think for the LEQs they also ask for outside evidence. And I only know like some of the basic things like Machiavelli's The Prince and Castiglione's paper on the on men and women. But other than that, like if they ask for
the Book of the Courtier.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And if they like, but like if the prompt asks for like outside evidence and I really don't know what to put there, what should I do in that case?
Well, the thing is, if it asks for outside evidence and you don't have any, then you're not going to get the point. I mean, basically, as far as that goes, you know, so on the LEQ, yes, you are required to, you know, to produce some outside evidence. But, you know, you want to make sure, I mean, you either have it or you don't. Now you can try to use some outside evidence. The best thing, the biggest thing is it needs to be specific. Okay. The evidence that you use needs to be specific. Now, depending on the topic, and that's the thing, we don't know what they're going to ask about tomorrow or, you know, technically today. But the thing is, if you don't have outside evidence, it's just, you're not going to be able to produce it out of nowhere. But that's the thing. Now, again, if you're going to use Machiavelli's The Prince as evidence, the most important thing is that it's not a drive-by thing, that you are actually making use of that evidence, you see? So you know, that you're explaining what he meant by that and everything. And that is, you know, evidence rather than just mentioning it. So that's one thing that's important for noting evidence.
Okay. And also, for the I just forgot. Oh yeah, so I downloaded your app. And so tomorrow morning, what should I refresh quickly? Because I wake up pretty early.
Well, see, this is the thing. You don't know what they're going to ask about. So I would just pick one and go with it. Like, it's really like the best way to make sure, you know, you get well good on the exam is to, you know, is to know everything. And so, you know, very good as far as the, you know, as far as buying the app. Thank you and congratulations, you know, and all that kind of stuff. So great. Thank you for that. And yeah, I would just say, just think about, hey, what could I use a refresher on and go from there.
Oh, also one more thing. Can you shout out?
Last one.
Sorry.
Then you're going to bed. Then you're going to bed.
Yeah. Can you shout out my teacher by any chance? Her name is Dr. Curley.
Dr. Curley.
Yeah.
Yes, I mean I can. Yeah, so yeah, she got. Okay, so you'll be able to play this video for her later. Well, oh, you're recording that now. Okay, so yes, Dr. Curley, thank you so much for supporting my work and all of that kind of stuff. And you know, hope this guy does well in his exam tomorrow.
All right, I'm gonna go now.
Okay, have a good night.
Bye, you too.
Okay, let's see. Geetha, I don't think I've seen you. Oh, wait, I saw you much earlier. Okay, so you were here earlier. Okay, excellent. And so you have another question for me? Your microphone's muted.
Yeah, yeah, I'm on a different account, but
okay, yeah, sorry about that. I was, you know, it's just I had trying to make room for people, and then I realized, wait, I probably shouldn't kick these people. So yeah, thanks for you know, thanks for your understanding and all that. But yeah, do you have another question for me?
Yeah, I was wondering about like on the DBQs for outside information. Um, how would they count it? Like if you supposedly said something like Castiglione wrote the Book of the Courtier, would that count as one piece or two pieces?
Well, no. Okay, good question, because if you only noted that he wrote the Book of the Courtier, that Castiglione, or Castiglione, it's a written test, so we're good. In which Castiglione is much easier to spell it right. And so the thing is, if you just wrote that Castiglione wrote the Book of the Courtier, that's probably 0 pieces of evidence, okay? Because you would have to explain why that's significant. So he wrote the Book of the Courtier, which did da-da-da-da-da-da-da, you see? So, evidence on the DBQ and the LEQ typically needs to be a couple of sentences, so you make sure you flesh that out. But it's a good question because, yeah, it's not like the reader has tally marks like, oh, they mentioned this, they mentioned this. You don't get so much credit for name dropping as showing, what you're talking about. So, Castiglione wrote the Book of the Courtier, which was an etiquette book for men and women in Renaissance Italy looking to succeed at a royal court. And so, as far as that would be one piece of evidence. Got me?
Yeah.
Okay, so that would be one piece of evidence, like being very descriptive and showing not only are you mentioning something, but you know what you're talking about.
Okay.
All right. Well, thank you very much, and good luck on your exam tomorrow.
Thank you.
All right. Now, let's see. Any other questions from you two that are still here? I'll take a question or two more. I really should get some rest, so I've got my voice tomorrow. I don't want to lose my voice during tomorrow's Breakfast with Richey broadcast. So let me go ahead and just say hey to everybody one more time in the chat here. Looks like y'all are having a great, great time over here. And let's see what we've got. Henry spoke very well, y'all. Good luck, Owen. Good luck, Owen. All right. So as far as that, how they followed France via synthesis on how the Warsaw Pact, nations had revolutions followed the. Wow, that's now remember one thing I want to say about synthesis. Synthesis is not a comparison. Okay, what's important to note here is that synthesis is not a comparison. Hey, Carson. Hey, Maria. That synthesis is when we extend the argument. So synthesis has to go back to which synthesis, you can't write synthesis without thesis. So synthesis has to extend your argument. It has to extend the thesis. And so you don't really know what you can use synthesis for, thank you, William, until you see the prompt. And I think that is very important. Okay, so excellent, Luke. Excellent. The Bolsheviks, Lenin, all that kind of stuff. I'm pretty much gonna, about to call this a night, and we'll be getting to that. We'll be getting to that pretty soon. But make sure synthesis is really something. It has to extend the. Oh, come on, seriously now. All right, we're just gonna have to go ahead and remove Death Jr. Okay. Oh wait, never mind. Okay, so let's see. Go ahead and block Death Jr. Bye. Good luck on your exam. All right. So as far as that is concerned, let's see. Okay. Yeah, synthesis. There's nothing like worse than bad synthesis, so which I tell my students, like, if synthesis isn't going to happen, it's kind of hard to make. Now give it a try, okay? But as far, good. I mean, I wanted to have, and notice here, it's like, as far as it looks like those of y'all that went in the chat, it's like the chat is pretty manageable. It's not like a public chat would be. So it's like, you basically paid $5 to put yourself into a forum where you could have an intelligent conversation with people and all of that kind of stuff. So glad that y'all found this helpful because, this is a market transaction, and all of that. So thank y'all. Good deal. Now, Yeah, the LEQ, yeah, you are generating a lot of your evidence, and it's not for everybody. I mean, everybody's got their weakness. The good news about the LEQ, if that's your weakness, is it's only 15% of the test. And so remember, here's one thing, maybe a word of encouragement for some of you that don't know, that the average score on the LEQ out of 6 points is like less than 2. Like if you make a 2 on the LEQ, you have written an average LEQ. Like most LEQs are pretty pitiful. And so, you know, but if you make a 3 out of 6, you're doing great. And so when it comes down to it, if you can write a thesis that accounts for continuity and change, that's the biggest thing. Don't leave points on the table by saying continuity or just change or something like that. So some people are like, oh, change over time, I can do this. It has to address continuity. You know, turning points. On periodization, every turning point is an incomplete turning point. So you need to note that. And then comparison, similarities and differences. And causes, causation, multiple causes. So as far as that is concerned, the thesis needs to address both of those. Then somewhere in the body paragraphs, there needs to be 2 pieces of evidence that support your argument. Just 2. And, you know, as long as those are 2 quality pieces of evidence, then there you go. And somewhere in the body paragraph, it has to refer to continuity and somewhere else change. Somewhere similarities, somewhere's differences, somewhere differences. You know, how was it a turning point? How wasn't it a turning point? That's the biggest thing. LEQs are actually like very easy to score points on. So that's something that I think is important here. I'll take a caffeine pill before the test. That's hilarious. Yeah, I think that I am going to take y'all's advice and do that. And so the thing is, I will be broadcasting at 9 o'clock. So I'm going to try to get a little sleep, rest my voice a little bit, and then one last broadcast. So thank y'all so much. I hope y'all got your money's worth. Again, if anybody thinks that they didn't, let me know. You know, I'll be glad to make it up to you. So, you know, I guarantee anything that I sell, I guarantee, you know, these are market transactions. Everybody should be satisfied. Okay. It's like, you know, if I've got your money, you should be happy about that. All right. So ladies and gentlemen, thank y'all. Good night. I think that after I stop the broadcast, y'all might be able to stay in the chat room for a little bit. I think that's the way these things work. Yes. Thank you, William. You are the man. All right. Yeah. Thank y'all so much. But like I said, I think that you can still, I think you'll still be able to chat for a little bit, even if I, you know, get this started. All right. So, well, it depends on what time. 9 Eastern is when I'm going to be doing this. So we got that. All right. Well, I kind of am your teacher on YouTube at least. All right. So yes. All right. Well, thank y'all. I tell you what, y'all really make me feel so warm inside and all that kind of stuff. Now, and so Miss Resmic's class. Okay, that's not a written test. All right, so I'll see you tomorrow. All right, and I love all of you too, Olivia. Thank you so much. You know, those of you actually like, you know, thought enough to like just actually like pay to get in here. Very honored, ladies and gentlemen. So again, good luck on your test tomorrow, and you know, hopefully y'all be tuning in for the broadcast, and I'll have like some caffeine, and I'm just be like super energetic. This is a lot more chill because it's late at night, and my caffeine supply is gone. All right, so ladies and gentlemen, thank y'all so much, and have a wonderful night, and let's just kill that test tomorrow. It's always a pleasure.
Thank you so much.
All right, you're welcome.